Chapter 1. Snowflakes and Strawberry Lip Gloss. If I had to describe Winter Hollow in one word, it would be quiet. Not the boring kind of quiet, though. The kind where everything whispers to you. The snow crunches under your boots like secrets being told just for your ears, and even the pine trees seem to murmur things in the wind. It's the kind of place that doesn't just look like a Christmas card, it feels like one. Winter Hollow, Colorado. Population, 2,148, according to the faded green sign on the way into town. But I swear, it's been 2,148 for the last 5 years. We're the kind of town that stays frozen in time, literally and otherwise, especially in December. Our little town is hugged by snow-capped mountains, and the air smells like wood smoke and pine needles. It's the kind of place where everyone knows each other, and if you sneeze in public, 3 people will bless you and 1 will offer you a tissue. My dad says we live in a snow globe, and sometimes I think he's right. My name is Dianna Wills. I'm 17, a senior at Winter Hollow High School, and a certified extrovert with a borderline unhealthy obsession with hot cocoa and glittery nail polish. I live on a tree-lined street with a mailbox shaped like a snowman, my mom's idea, and my best friend Maddie lives 3 houses down. Life here isn't exactly exciting, but it has its moments. Like the time Maddie and I tried to go sledding down Miller's Hill and ended up crashing into the mayor's fence. Or when Mrs. Langley's cat got stuck in the bakery's chimney and became a local celebrity. Fun, weird, small-town stuff. But this year, something feels different. It started with the dreams, the kind that leave you breathless when you wake up. Snow-covered forests, glowing amber eyes in the dark, and the sound of a low growl echoing in the distance. I can never remember much, just flashes, but I always wake up shivering. Anyway, today started like any other cold December morning. I rolled out of bed with my quilt still tangled around my ankles and nearly tripped over my backpack. My room is a chaotic masterpiece of color, posters of indie bands, fairy lights, and an embarrassing number of stuffed animals for someone my age. "Dianna, breakfast," Mom called from downstairs. I threw on my favorite oversized sweater, the lavender one with little white snowflakes, and my skinny jeans, then grabbed my strawberry lip gloss from the dresser. A girl's gotta have her essentials. Downstairs, the smell of cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee filled the air. My mom stood at the stove in her reindeer apron, and my dad was reading the paper with his glasses perched on his nose. "Morning, honey," Mom said, kissing the top of my head. "Eat something warm, it's freezing out." I grabbed a cinnamon roll and practically inhaled it, while my dad tried to convince me to take the car today. "Dad, it's only a 10-minute walk," I said, bundling up in my coat and scarf. "Besides, Maddie's waiting." "You're as stubborn as your mother," he said, sipping his coffee. "Be careful, they say wolves have been spotted near the woods." "Wolves," I laughed. "Dad, the scariest thing in those woods is a raccoon with a bad attitude." Still, something about the way he looked at me made me pause. He was serious. I brushed it off with a smile and kissed them both goodbye. Outside, the world was wrapped in a soft white blanket. The snowflakes were thick and lazy, like they had nowhere to be. I loved this walk, the sound of the snow under my boots, the way the trees glittered like they were dusted with sugar. It was like something out of a fairy tale. Maddie met me at the corner, wearing a pink beanie and matching gloves. She grinned when she saw me. "You look like a human marshmallow," she said, linking her arm with mine. "Thanks, I try." We talked about everything and nothing on the way to school, her latest crush, Brandon, the guy who works at the gas station and always smells like motor oil, the math test we were dreading, and our plans for the winter ball next week. "You have to wear the red dress," Maddie said, her eyes lighting up. "It's literally made for you." "We'll see," I said. "Maybe I'll wear something glittery, you know me." "You are a glitter gremlin," she teased. Winter Hollow High is small. Like our mascot is literally a squirrel. Winter Hollow fighting squirrels intimidating, right? The building is old, with creaky floors and radiators that groan like they're haunted. Classes were a blur of chatter and daydreams. In English, Mrs. Fairweather was assigning another essay on symbolism in classic literature. Yay! In chemistry, Maddie and I accidentally set a beaker on fire. Again. And at lunch, the cafeteria was buzzing about the snowfall and the dance and, surprisingly, wolf sightings. I heard someone saw one right by the soccer field, said Jeremy, a junior who thinks Axe body spray is a personality. Like a huge one, with yellow eyes. Probably a dog, Maddie said. Or a bear. People in this town see a shadow and think it's a werewolf. Yeah, I agreed, but something about the idea made me shiver. The rest of the day passed in a blur. After school, Maddie and I stopped by the Snowdrop Cafe, our favorite spot. It's the coziest place in town, all warm lights and mismatched mugs. We sat by the window with our hot chocolates and watched the snow fall. You ever feel like something's coming? I asked, not even sure why I said it. Maddie raised an eyebrow. Like what? I shrugged. I don't know, just like the air is heavier than usual. She stared at me for a second, then threw a marshmallow at my face. You've been watching too many spooky shows again. Come on, let's go make snow angels. We did, right outside the cafe, because why not? By the time I got home, my cheeks were pink from the cold, and my boots were soaked. I had dinner with my parents, Mom made her famous pot pie, and then curled up in bed with my journal. I wrote about the day, about the weird dreams, and about the eyes I keep seeing in them, always watching, always waiting. And then, as I turned off the lights and settled under the covers, I heard something. A howl. Low, distant, and full of sorrow. I told myself it was just the wind. But something deep inside me knew better. Something was coming to Winter Hollow. And my world was about to change forever. Chapter 2. The scent of snow and something more. There's something about waking up after the first real snowfall that makes the world feel softer. Quieter, like even time is tiptoeing. That morning, Winter Hollow was buried under a blanket of white, so thick the trees looked like they were sculpted from sugar. I stared out my bedroom window for a long time before getting dressed, letting the silence soak in. The howl from the night before still echoed in my bones. It hadn't been the wind, I knew that much now, but whatever it had been, it hadn't come back. Yet. I pulled on my thickest coat, double socks, and my favorite scarf, striped navy and white, a gift from Maddie. She said it brought out my eyes, though I was convinced it made me look like a walking candy cane. Still, it was warm, and Maddie had good taste. She was already waiting for me by the gate when I got outside, leaning against the old wrought iron post like she belonged in a magazine spread titled Winter, but make it magic. Finally, she said, dramatically tossing her long, dark braid over one shoulder. I was beginning to think you de-melted into your sheets. I was my sheets, I grinned. But then I remembered I had to endure another day of education for the sake of my inevitable world domination. Please, you'd be the first dictator with a sticker collection and a Hello Kitty pen. Hey, I said, feigning offense. Hello Kitty pens have power, ruthless, glittery power. Does your reign of terror involve scented gel ink and aggressively cute stationery? Only for the weak. The strong get glitter bombs in the mail. We started walking, our boots crunching through the snow. The cold bit at our cheeks, but we were too busy laughing about our latest failed chemistry experiment to notice. I swear, if Mr. Dalton sees us anywhere near a Bunsen burner again, he's going to faint, Maddie said. We only slightly singed the counter. Slightly. It looked like a marshmallow roast gone wrong. We were halfway to school when I felt it. Like a ripple in the air, like the moment right before a storm hits, the stillness, the hum of something unseen. I stopped walking. Maddie turned back. What's up? Did you feel that? She frowned. Feel what? I looked around, scanning the snow-covered street. Empty. I don't know, I said, though my heart was beating faster. Just something. Maddie studied me for a beat longer than usual. Then she nudged my shoulder with hers. You're weird, but you're my weird. Come on, we're gonna be late. And just like that, the moment passed. Our school looked like something out of a Hallmark movie in the snow, all red bricks and ivy and icicles dangling from the eaves. Students were huddled in groups, breath fogging in the cold, gossip flowing faster than hot chocolate at the Snowdrop Cafe. And today, there was fresh fuel. "Did you see him yet?" Kayla practically screamed, grabbing my arm. "See who?" "The new guy transferred in from somewhere out west, like Oregon or something, super mysterious, super hot, like punch me in the face hot." Maddie rolled her eyes. "Calm down, Kayla, or you'll fog up your glasses." "I'm just saying," Kayla huffed. "He's in our grade, and rumor is he's in your homeroom." Maddie and I exchanged a glance. We made our way to homeroom, joking about how this mysterious Oregonian was probably a troll or a lizard in disguise. I was halfway through a very dramatic impersonation of a lizard boy trying to flirt when he walked in. Tall, dark, intensity cranked up to 11. His black hoodie looked like it belonged in a post-apocalyptic movie, and his boots stomped like they had somewhere important to be. But it was the way the room shifted around him, like he bent the air, that hit hardest. Raphael Wolf. Our eyes met for the briefest second. Zap. Then he looked away like it burned. He dropped his pen as he moved toward the back. I noticed, bent to pick it up. "Hey, you dropped this," I said, holding it out. He turned slowly, took it without touching me. His fingers brushed the edge. Our eyes met again. Then his expression tightened like I'd just handed him a live grenade. He mumbled a gruff thanks and practically bolted to his seat, as if I'd sneezed fire in his direction. I stood there blinking. "Okay then." Maddie leaned over. "Did he just run from you like you were the plague?" I nodded. "I think I scared him." She smirked, averse, and I laughed, but the look in his eyes still burned behind mine. Something strange was happening in Winter Hollow, and I had the feeling it was only just beginning. Chapter 3, Eyes in the Dark. Dreams are strange things. You wake up and try to tell yourself they're not real, that they're just flickers of the brain, meaningless images stitched together by sleep. But this morning, when I woke up, I could still smell the forest, the snow, the fur, like I'd run through the woods barefoot and breathless, like I'd been hunted. Or worse, like I'd been the one hunting. I blinked against the light pouring through my window. It had snowed again overnight, soft and heavy, muting the world. Everything was quiet, too quiet, not even a bird call, and the dream clung to me, sticky and strange. Golden eyes, watching me from the trees. I shook it off and went through the motions: shower, clothes, toast. Mom was already gone for work, and Dad had left a note about fixing the leaky faucet, which meant he'd spend half the day cursing at plumbing. At school, the buzz about the new guy hadn't died down. If anything, it had exploded. Apparently, Raphael Wolf had become some sort of mythical creature overnight. Girls speculated about his accent, none, his mysterious past, non-existent, probably, and his wardrobe, monochrome. Guys mostly just resented him for existing. And me, I was trying not to care. Really, I was. But every time I caught sight of him, something inside me reacted. Not in the "he's so cute I could faint" way, but more like I'd spotted a mountain lion in a grocery store. Wrong place, wrong time, but I couldn't look away. In history, I caught myself staring at him again. He sat at the back, hood up, eyes down, like he didn't want to be seen. Like he was trying to shrink himself smaller than his already lean, tall frame. But there was something about him that resisted shrinking. He was all sharp edges and cold silence, and I was starting to feel like a moth drawn to a flame that might burn me alive. I tried to ignore it. Tried to act normal when he passed me in the hall between classes. But there was that ripple again, the shift in the air, like something electric was sparking just under the surface. He avoided my eyes, again. But I swear, when I turned the corner, I could feel his gaze on my back. After school, Maddie and I camped at our usual booth in the Snowdrop Cafe. She was in the middle of telling me about her latest musical obsession, a Finnish metal band that played only on harpsichords, when I spaced out again. Okay, seriously, she said, tapping my mug. Earth to Dianna, you've been weird all day. Have not. Have to. You keep zoning out like you're having an existential crisis in slow motion. Is it the new guy? No, too fast. I sipped my hot chocolate to cover the lie. I mean, yes, kind of, but not like that. She gave me the Maddie look trademark, eyebrows raised, unimpressed. Spill. I hesitated. He just feels off. Like, I don't know, something about him doesn't make sense. Maybe he's a vampire. Not helping. Or a spy. Or a runaway prince from a magical realm who only you can save. I groaned. Why do I tell you things? Because I'm brilliant and loyal and bring you pastries. She pushed a cinnamon bun toward me. I forgave her immediately. The rest of the evening passed in blur. We studied a bit, laughed more, pretended everything was normal. But later, walking home alone, I took the long way. The snow was soft underfoot. The sky was that deep winter blue that comes just before true night. Street lamps cast golden halos onto the white, and my breath puffed clouds into the air. I should have felt peaceful, safe. Instead, I felt watched. I stopped walking. The sound behind me stopped too. I turned quickly, nothing but trees. The road behind me was empty. I started walking again, slower now. Crunch, crunch. There it was again. I spun. Still nothing. But the wind shifted, and for a second, just a second, I caught a scent I couldn't explain. Wild, clean, like pine needles and frost and something else. Something that made my chest tighten and my skin prickle. Something that made me think of Raphael. I didn't run, I didn't speak. I just stood there, staring into the trees, heart racing. And in the hush of snow and breath and silence, I thought I heard it. A low growl, barely a whisper. Then nothing. I hurried the rest of the way home. By the time I crawled into bed, the scent was gone, but the feeling was. Not fear exactly, not yet. But something was coming. And I wasn't sure if I was meant to run from it, or run toward it. Chapter 4, Misread Signals. Weekends in Winter Hollow were either painfully dull or oddly eventful. This one was shaping up to be the latter. It started with a group trip to the town's winter market. Maddie was off babysitting her little cousins, so I went with Alina and Jonah, two of my friends from History Club. Alina had this running commentary on every vendor's decor choices, and Jonah kept daring us to sample the weirdest food items. Spoiler, the spiced trout cocoa was as vile as it sounds. The market was crowded but cozy. Strings of fairy lights tangled above the booths, and the scent of roasted chestnuts and cinnamon made the cold bearable. I was distracted, flipping through a rack of vintage scarves, when a familiar voice brushed my ears. Careful, that one smells like mothballs and regret. I turned, and there he was. Raphael Wolf. He was holding out a scarf I must have dropped, his expression unreadable. Just standing there in his black coat, hood down for once, snowflakes catching in his hair like a movie scene no one asked for. Oh, I said, brilliant as always. Thanks. He nodded and stepped back, almost like my presence physically burned. He was already turning to leave when I blurted, Wait, you're here for the market. He paused, looked around, just passing through. Something about his voice always caught me off guard, like it didn't match the way he carried himself, so careful, so guarded. It was soft, controlled, like he weighed every word before letting it go. You always pass through areas with cider tastings and pottery stands, I asked, trying to keep it light. He smirked, barely. Sometimes. And then she appeared. The girl. Tall, effortlessly gorgeous, all waves of glossy black hair and eyes that looked like they belonged in a magazine. She came up behind him, laughing softly and looping her arm through his like she'd done it 1,000 times. Oh, I said again, suddenly stupid and cold despite my layers. Raphael stiffened. This is my cousin Iris, he said quickly. Iris smiled at me, warm and curious. You must be Dianna. Wait, what? He told her about me. Nice to meet you, I managed, cheeks heating. Jonah and Alina had wandered over and were suddenly very interested in a nearby booth of ceramic frogs. I couldn't blame them. Well, I said, stepping back, I should, let you guys enjoy the market. Iris started to say something, but Raphael was already guiding her toward a parked car, his expression unreadable again. Before I could say anything else, he opened the door for her, then paused. He glanced back at me, like he wanted to say something. Then he got in and drove off. I stared after the car for a moment too long. Jonah sidled up beside me, holding a frog mug. So, ex-girlfriend. I shook my head. Cousin. As we wandered to the next booth, I tried to shake it off, to be normal, to laugh at Jonah's awful frog puns, to nod along to Alina's theories about peppermint candles and mood enhancement. But somewhere behind all that noise, I kept replaying the look Raphael gave me. That pause, that flicker, like a spark caught in a storm and quickly smothered. And I couldn't help but wonder if he felt it too.
Chapter 5: The Weight of the Past. 6 months ago, everything changed. It was supposed to be the night when the future of the Nightshade Pack was secured, the night when the next in line to become Alpha would be officially announced. My father had ruled as Alpha for as long as I could remember, but the time had come to choose who would take over when the time was right. At 18, I was considered old enough to take on that responsibility. The ceremony was meant to be a celebration, the first step in my journey to eventually becoming Alpha. It was supposed to be my night. But I wasn't there. Luca, my best friend and a fellow member of the pack, had asked me to accompany him on a small trip outside the pack territory, a sort of rite of passage for me before I took on the mantle. He was 2 years older than me and lower in rank, but he had been with me through everything. I owed him. The plan was simple, just a quick getaway, but I should have known better. I should have known that when a pack is vulnerable, when the Alpha is distracted, focusing on the ceremony, it was the perfect moment for someone to strike. We were miles away when we heard it. A howl of terror. Luca and I stopped dead in our tracks. It was unlike anything I had ever heard before. It wasn't just a warning, it was a scream for help, a cry for survival. I knew in that instant that something was horribly wrong. Get to the pack, I said, my voice tight with urgency. We didn't even speak after that, we just ran. We ran like never before. The wind was a blur against my face, the cold biting at my skin as we sprinted back to the territory. I could hear Luca's heavy breathing beside me, but I didn't dare slow down. The howl had already echoed through the woods, and I knew it was only a matter of time before more would follow. I could feel it in my bones. This wasn't just an attack, this was something calculated. They were coming for us. We kept running, our feet pounding against the ground, but it felt like the distance between us and the pack grew longer with every step. I heard another howl, this one lower, filled with more anguish. It was too late. By the time Luca and I reached the perimeter, the pack had already fallen. The Iron Fang pack, a rival that had always been a thorn in our side, had struck when we were weakest. They had waited for the perfect moment to catch us off guard. The ceremony, the distraction, the vulnerable state we were in, all of it was their opening, and they took it. The pack was in ruins. My father, my mother, my brother, all of them were gone. I didn't know how many had survived, but it didn't matter. We had failed. We weren't there when we were needed the most. I should have been there. I should have sensed it coming, but I was too far away, caught up in the life I thought I could escape into. My mate, Dianna, had yet to cross my path, and here I was, lost in my own frustrations, unable to protect my pack, my family. When I finally reached the center of the wreckage, the smell of smoke and blood filled the air. The sounds of desperate struggle were gone, replaced by an eerie silence that only amplified the pain. I could hear Luca beside me, his breath ragged and uneven, but his face was pale, his eyes distant. "We should have been here," I muttered, staring at the burning remains of the pack house. Luca shook his head. "We couldn't have known. This wasn't your fault, Raphael." But it didn't matter. It was my fault. I wasn't there. I was supposed to be there. I should have been the one to protect them, to keep them safe, but I was, and now everything was gone. My uncle Dominic, a lone wolf who had left the pack years ago, was the one who stepped in. He had never been interested in the politics of alpha leadership. He had always chosen to live alone, detached from the pack's internal struggles. But when the Nightshade pack was decimated, he didn't hesitate to offer me a place. Dominic didn't want to rebuild a traditional pack. He was a lone wolf, after all. But with the remnants of the Nightshade pack destroyed, he had no choice. He took me in, and together we formed the Silver Crescent Pack. It wasn't a full-fledged pack in the traditional sense. It was a small group of rogues, survivors, and a few others that Dominic had gathered. But it was a start. I was still too young to lead, and Dominic wasn't pushing me to. He didn't want me to feel the pressure of alpha duties right away. Instead, he guided me, showed me the ropes, taught me what it meant to survive and rebuild. But even so, the anger inside me never subsided. I wasn't the alpha, but I would be, one day. The responsibility would eventually fall on me, I knew that. And I would take the Iron Fang pack down for what they did to us. I would make them pay for destroying my family, my pack. That's why I came to college. It wasn't for education or anything like that. It was a way to keep my mind occupied, to keep my anger in check. I needed something else to focus on, even if it was just for a short while. And then I saw her. Dianna. From the moment I laid eyes on her, I knew. I could feel it, our bond, the undeniable pull. She was my mate, the mate I didn't want. Not yet. I couldn't act on it, not while my pack was in ruins, not while the Iron Fang pack was still out there, still threatening us. I couldn't let her distract me. She was beautiful, smart, everything I could ever want, but I had a mission. My pack needed me. I would deal with my feelings for her later. Right now, my only focus was vengeance. Chapter 6, The Mate I Didn't Ask For. The scent hit me before I even saw her. Sweet, earthy, like fresh rain on pine, and something softer underneath, something that stirred instincts I'd been burying since the day I arrived. Dianna. She was in the library, bent over a thick textbook, the sunlight catching in her hair. A lock slipped free, brushing her cheek. She tucked it back absently, mouthing the words she read. I should have looked away, should have turned and left like I always did. But I didn't. I stood there longer than I should have, the pull tightening in my chest like a thread I hadn't realized I was holding. She was human, entirely human, fragile in all the ways that made me dangerous. She didn't know what I was, what I'd lost. She didn't know about the blood still drying on my past or the vengeance that pulsed beneath my skin. And she couldn't. Because if she did, she'd run. Or worse, she wouldn't. From the moment I laid eyes on her, I knew. I could feel it, our bond, the undeniable pull. She was my mate, the mate I didn't want. Not yet. I couldn't act on it, not while my pack was in ruins, not while the Iron Fang pack still walked free. She was a distraction I couldn't afford. Beautiful, smart, kind, everything I'd ever wanted and everything I had no right to claim. At school, I kept my distance, didn't speak, didn't sit too close, but every time she looked my way, something inside me howled. She tapped her pencil when she was thinking, bit her lip when she was stuck on a problem, laughed with that crinkle in her eyes like the world wasn't as broken as I knew it was. She was full of little habits I never meant to memorize. The wolf in me stirred, it wanted her, needed her, but I wouldn't let it win. Not until I'd done what I came here to do. Not until the Iron Fangs were dust and my fallen had peace. So I kept watching from afar, tethered to her by a bond I never asked for, and reminded myself again. She is not mine. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But Moon Goddess help me, I wanted her anyway.
Chapter 7. Something shifts. The halls had emptied out slowly, the quiet settling like dust around my ankles. I lingered at my locker longer than necessary, pretending to rearrange things I'd barely touched. Really, I was hoping for something I couldn't name. But Raphael was nowhere to be seen. I had grown used to that, used to watching him from across the classroom while he stared straight ahead, never once glancing in my direction. It was frustrating, confusing, and yet something about it made my heart clench in ways I didn't understand. "You coming?" Maddie asked, slinging her backpack over her shoulder. "In a minute," I said. She raised an eyebrow but didn't press. "I'll wait outside." When she left, I shut the locker and leaned my head against the cool metal. I didn't know why I cared so much. It wasn't like we were friends. Raphael barely acknowledged me, but every once in a while I'd catch a look in his eyes, something raw and sharp, like he was at war with himself. And for some reason, I felt like I was part of that war. That afternoon, I decided to walk home the long way, cutting through the old trail behind the school. The air was crisp, filled with the scent of pine and earth. I didn't expect to see anyone, especially not him. He stood by the stream, half in shadow, half in sunlight, staring into the water like it held answers. His posture was tense, arms crossed, muscles coiled beneath his hoodie. I froze. He looked up. For a second, our eyes met, and instead of walking away like he usually did, he said, "Hey." It wasn't much, but coming from Raphael, it felt like a door creaking open. "Hey," I said back, heart thudding stupidly. He didn't move, didn't ask me to come closer, but he didn't leave either. So I took a step, then another. The leaves crunched under my sneakers, the silence stretching between us. Until we were both standing there, listening to the quiet trickle of water and birdsong in the distance. Neither of us spoke again. But something had shifted, and I felt it like a thread pulling taut between us. Chapter 8, Tension Lingers. I didn't expect to see Raphael again anytime soon. The next few days passed in a blur of mundane school routines. I half expected him to slip back into his usual silence, keeping his distance like he always did. But something had changed. That brief exchange by the stream, it lingered in my mind longer than I'd like to admit. It wasn't much, just a word, a fleeting glance, but somehow it felt like we'd crossed some unspoken line. Still, nothing was different, not outwardly anyway. The halls were just as noisy, the chatter just as loud. And Raphael, he was still the same enigma, keeping to himself, staying on the fringes. Except now I couldn't shake the feeling that something was simmering beneath the surface. That Friday, I found myself drawn to the schoolyard after the final bell rang. The weather was cool, the sky painted in shades of orange and pink as the sun dipped low. The usual crowd of students quickly dispersed, but I wasn't in a hurry to leave. I lingered near the old tree, watching the last of the sunlight slant through the branches, feeling the tension in the air. I heard footsteps before I saw him, a steady, rhythmic pace that pulled me out of my thoughts. Without looking, I knew it was him. Raphael didn't say anything when he appeared beside me, just stood there for a long moment, his hands shoved into the pockets of his hoodie. His presence was quiet, but it filled the space around us like a storm about to break. I shifted on my feet, suddenly aware of how close he was, how the air between us felt charged, like it was thick with anticipation. "You're not leaving." His voice was low, rough, but there was something almost hesitant beneath it, as though he was searching for a way to connect, even if only for a second. I shook my head, not in a hurry. His gaze flicked to me, and I felt a strange heat rise in my chest. He didn't look away immediately, like he usually did. Instead, his eyes lingered, studying me with an intensity that sent a jolt through my body. I couldn't quite place the feeling. Was it curiosity, or something more? For a moment, the world around us seemed to fade. The noise, the movement, everything vanished, and all I could focus on was him. Then he moved, stepping just a little closer, so close that I could feel the heat radiating off him. I swallowed, my throat dry, my heartbeat accelerating. I wasn't sure if I was supposed to say something, do something, but all I could manage was a shallow breath. "I'm not good at this," Raphael said suddenly, his voice so quiet I almost didn't hear him. My brow furrowed, and I turned to face him more fully, unsure if I'd heard him right. "Not good at what?" He ran a hand through his hair, his gaze flickering away for a moment before landing on me again. "Talking about things." He trailed off like the words were heavy, like they were dragging him down. I stayed silent, letting him continue, though part of me was already wondering if I should be saying something, anything, to fill the gap. But somehow, in that moment, the silence didn't feel like something to be filled. It felt important. "Sometimes, I think," he paused, his jaw tightening as though he was weighing something heavy in his mind. "Sometimes I don't know how to be around people, around you." I wasn't sure what to say to that, but then he took another step closer, and I felt my pulse quicken. "I don't know what it is," he said, his voice dropping even lower, a touch of frustration creeping in. "But you make things feel complicated." The words hit me in a way I didn't expect. They were raw, exposed, and for a moment, I could see the cracks in his usual guarded demeanor. There was vulnerability in his eyes, something that made my chest tighten. "Complicated," I repeated, trying to process what he was really saying. How? His lips parted like he was about to say something, but then he closed his mouth again, his shoulders tensing. It was as though something inside him was at war. He looked at me like he wanted to say more to explain himself, but the words never came. Instead, he took another step toward me, closer than ever before. I could feel the pull between us, a magnetic force that drew us in despite the distance we'd kept for so long. His breath was steady, but I could see the tension in his shoulders, the slight clench of his jaw. There was something in the way he was standing now, something almost daring. I could feel the heat of his presence, feel the intensity of the moment crackling in the air. "Raphael," I started, unsure of what I wanted to say, but he stopped me with a look. Just a look, and it was enough to leave me breathless. He didn't speak, but the way he stood there, his gaze fixed on mine, spoke volumes. For a second, I wondered if he was going to kiss me, if this was the moment where everything shifted again. But then, as quickly as it had started, he broke the silence. He stepped back, breaking the magnetic pull between us, his gaze flicking to the ground. "Maybe I'll see you later," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. But it didn't feel like a goodbye. It felt unfinished. He turned away before I could say anything, walking off without another glance. I stood there, my heart pounding, my breath caught in my throat. I couldn't quite process what had just happened. But I knew one thing for sure. Whatever this was, it was far from over.
Chapter 9. Underneath it all. I couldn't stop thinking about her. The pull between us was undeniable. It had been 6 months since I realized she was my mate, and yet every time I saw her, every time our eyes met, it felt like I was caught in a current I couldn't fight. My body responded to her in ways I couldn't control, but my mind kept telling me the same thing: focus. Focus on the pack, focus on the mission, focus on revenge. I rubbed a hand over my face, standing in the woods alone, trying to clear my head. It wasn't working. Luca had been right about one thing. I'd been pushing myself too hard, consumed with training, plotting, preparing. I wasn't just going to let my pack fall into chaos. I had to be ready for whatever came next. But then there was her. I couldn't keep pretending like the connection didn't exist. She was mine. I knew that now, and it was a truth I couldn't escape. The way she made me feel alive, real, in a way I hadn't felt in years, it was intoxicating. And yet I was still here, alone, still torn between duty and desire. "Raphael," Luca's voice broke through my thoughts, sharp and familiar. I turned to find him approaching, his expression knowing. "You're still thinking about her, aren't you?" he asked, crossing his arms over his chest. I couldn't hide it, I couldn't lie. "Yeah, I can't stop. Every time I see her, it gets harder to focus." Luca stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "You need to stop fighting it." "I can't just ignore everything else," I muttered. "The pack's been through hell. We've got a mission. We've got a future to build. This thing with her, I don't have time for it." Luca snorted, but there was no amusement in it. "You know that's not true. You're not just some soldier, Raphael. You've got a heart, and you're gonna need it, especially with her." "I'm not some soft idiot who lets his emotions get in the way of his duty." I clenched my fists, trying to push down the frustration that was bubbling up. "You're not an idiot," Luca shot back, his voice more serious than I expected. "But you're trying to pretend you don't feel something you can't ignore. You're already bound to her, and that's a strength, not a weakness." I shook my head. "I can't let this become a distraction. We've been training for months. I've been pushing myself, making sure I'm ready for whatever comes next. If I don't stay focused, if I let this pull get in the way, I might lose everything." "You're not going to lose everything," Luca said, his voice softening. "We're training for more than revenge, Raphael. We're training for survival. You think your pack will be stronger without you accepting who you are, without you accepting her?" I stayed silent, my thoughts spinning. The pack, the revenge, everything had been my focus for so long, but now with her, with the undeniable bond between us, I didn't know how to reconcile it all. "You've spent years keeping yourself distant from everything," Luca continued. "Going to college, coming back, training until you could barely stand, helping the pack members when they needed it. But you've been avoiding something crucial, the one thing that's supposed to make you stronger." "And what's that?" I asked, frustration rising. Luca didn't hesitate. Your mate, you need to stop pretending she's just some girl. She's not. She's the other half of you, Raphael, and you're wasting time fighting something that's already a part of you. I let the words sink in. I had spent months denying it, telling myself that it wasn't the right time. But Luca was right. I couldn't keep pushing her away just because I was scared. I wasn't scared of the future. I was scared of what letting myself care would mean. You're right, I finally muttered, my voice low. I can't keep doing this. But what about the revenge, the pack, everything we've been training for? Luca put a hand on my shoulder. You can have both, but you can't have one without the other. If you let go of what's holding you back, you'll be stronger than you've ever been, for yourself, for her, and for your pack. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of his words settle in my chest. Maybe I could have both. Maybe I could lead my pack, honor my responsibilities, and still allow myself to embrace what I had with her. The revenge would come, the pack would rise, but now it felt like there was something more, something worth fighting for beyond just the battle ahead. All right, I said, meeting Luca's gaze. I'll talk to her, I'll stop running from this. Luca's lips curled into a rare smile. That's what I like to hear. He turned to walk away, but not before adding, and don't forget, Raphael, when the time comes, we'll get our revenge. We've got a plan and we'll execute it, but you can't carry that weight alone, not anymore. I nodded, the weight in my chest lighter than it had been in months. The path ahead wasn't going to be easy, but I wasn't going to face it alone. I had my pack, I had my mate. And for the first time in a long while, I felt ready.
Chapter 10. The Quiet Moments. The week after that moment in the schoolyard, things had changed between Raphael and me. But in a way, nothing had changed at all. It was confusing, and every time I tried to get a handle on it, it slipped through my fingers. I'd caught him watching me again, more than once from across the hall between classes, even during lunch. His gaze would find mine and linger, almost like he was waiting for me to do something, to make the next move. But every time I tried to get close, to speak, there was a distance between us that I couldn't quite bridge. Today, I had found myself walking home alone again, my thoughts consumed by him. The same feeling from the schoolyard lingered, electric, charged, like we were caught in some invisible web that neither of us knew how to untangle. As I rounded the corner to the street near my house, I spotted him again. Raphael was leaning against the fence at the end of the block, arms crossed, his posture as relaxed as ever, but there was something in the way his gaze tracked me that sent a flutter through my stomach. He was waiting, and for the first time, I felt like the waiting was for me. I stopped just a few feet away, unsure if I should approach. I didn't want to make it weird. His presence was magnetic, but there was a certain distance in the air, something unspoken that we hadn't addressed yet. "Hey," I said, my voice coming out a little softer than I intended. He looked up slowly, those eyes of his locking with mine. He didn't smile, but he didn't look away either. The silence between us stretched longer than I was comfortable with, and I couldn't quite decipher the look on his face. "Hey," he finally responded, his voice deep, measured. And yet there was something in it, something almost teasing, like he knew exactly what was going on in my head. I shifted on my feet, trying to hide the nervous energy I was suddenly feeling. "You, always hang out here." He nodded, but his gaze didn't move from mine. "Sometimes it's quiet." I bit my lip, wishing I could pull off something cool, something effortless. "I know what you mean," I said. "I like to walk this way, too." There was a brief silence again, and I felt my heart rate pick up, a little faster than I liked. Raphael tilted his head slightly, almost like he was studying me. "We never really talked, have we?" His words were simple, but the weight behind them was. I swallowed, the air suddenly feeling thick between us. "No," I murmured, taking a tentative step closer, yet still cautious. "We haven't." His eyes flickered down to my lips for a split second before meeting my eyes again. "Maybe it's time we did." Before I could say anything, a car honked from behind, breaking the moment. Raphael stepped back slightly, but the heat between us hadn't dissipated. I forced myself to turn away, but it wasn't easy. Something in me wanted to stay, to lean in and see where this moment would lead. But I wasn't ready. Not yet. Chapter 11. The Unspoken Game. The next few days felt like a game neither of us was ready to admit we were playing. Every glance, every little touch or moment of proximity felt charged, but neither of us said anything outright. It was like we were dancing around each other, waiting for the other to make the first move. I couldn't stop thinking about Raphael, and I couldn't shake the feeling that every time I saw him, he was one step closer to something. Maddie had noticed, of course. I couldn't hide anything from her. "Okay, seriously," she said one afternoon as we sat together in the cafeteria, a mischievous grin on her face. "What's going on with you two?" I tried to act nonchalant. "What do you mean?" "Don't play coy. I saw the way you were looking at him during history class, and I know he's been watching you too. What's the deal?" I sighed, glancing down at my tray. "There's no deal. I mean, he's just different, okay? He's hard to figure out." Maddie leaned in, her voice dropping to a playful whisper. "You know he's into you, right? Like, I'm no expert, but I can read the signs." I shook my head. "I don't know, it's just weird." She grinned. "Weird is good. Weird means something S happening, just don't make it harder than it has to be." I frowned. "What does that even mean?" Maddie shrugged. "I'm just saying, don't wait for the stars to align. Sometimes you just have to take a leap." I couldn't help but smile at her words, even if I wasn't sure I was ready to take that leap. There was something about Raphael, something that pulled at me but also terrified me at the same time. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to do with it. Later that afternoon, as I was walking to my next class, I saw Raphael again. This time, he wasn't leaning against a wall or standing still. He was walking toward me like he was, waiting for me. "Hey," he said, his voice low but warm. "Hey," I replied, my stomach doing that familiar flip. He didn't stop walking. Instead, he fell into step beside me, his shoulder brushing against mine ever so slightly. It wasn't much, but it felt like a promise. "You've been quiet," he said, glancing sideways at me. "I've been thinking," I replied, hoping I didn't sound as unsure as I felt. "About what you said the other day." He raised an eyebrow. "Which part?" I hesitated. "About us, about talking." For a moment, he didn't answer. Instead, he just looked at me, his expression unreadable. And then, as though deciding something, he smiled just slightly. "Maybe we should do more than talk," he murmured. Before I could respond, the bell rang and he walked away. But not without a look, one that promised there was more to come. Chapter 12. The tension tightens. The bell ringing in the distance was the only thing that broke the lingering silence between us. Raphael's words, though quiet, had sent a shiver down my spine. "Maybe we should do more than talk." The phrase echoed in my mind, impossible to ignore. I hadn't been prepared for the heat behind those words, or for the way they stirred something in me that I hadn't quite acknowledged until then. I stood there for a moment, watching as he walked off, his figure blending into the crowd of students. My heart was still racing, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Something that had been slowly building between us for days, even weeks, was now coming to the surface. When I finally pulled myself together, I turned on my heel and made my way to class. But my thoughts were miles away, lingering on Raphael and the way his presence seemed to fill every room he walked into. It was as if he had an aura, a magnetic pull that I couldn't seem to resist, even though part of me wanted to. The rest of the school day was a blur. I couldn't focus. My mind kept wandering back to that moment, to his words, to the way he had looked at me, like he knew something I didn't. After school, I met up with Maddie, who didn't waste a second before raising an eyebrow. "So," I groaned. "I don't even know, he said something today, and it was like he was flirting, but not really. It's confusing." Maddie grinned, clearly enjoying my confusion. "That's because you're not used to this. You're used to being in control, but Raphael, he's throwing you off balance and you're loving every second of it." I shook my head, trying to look annoyed, but I couldn't help the smile that tugged at my lips. "I don't know, he's different. Like there's something about him that I can't quite figure out." "Dianna," Maddie said seriously, her eyes gleaming with mischief. "You don't need to figure it out. You just need to let go and see where it takes you." I hesitated. But what if it's a mistake? What if I'm reading too much into this? Maddie leaned closer. What's the worst that could happen? You kiss him, maybe something awkward happens afterward, but I highly doubt it'll be that simple. And if it's as good as you think it might be, then you'll be in for a hell of a ride. I rolled my eyes at her, though a flush crept up my neck. Thanks for the advice, but I'm still not sure. Well, you're the one overthinking everything. Trust me, it's gonna be fine. You've got this. She winked and waved me off as she left, but her words stuck with me, swirling around in my head. The rest of the evening felt endless. I tried to keep my mind occupied with schoolwork, but every time I closed my eyes, I saw Raphael's smile, felt the heat from the brief touch of his shoulder against mine. And as much as I tried to ignore it, I couldn't help but wonder when the next time I'd see him would be. Chapter 13. The moment I can't deny. The next day was a Friday, and for some reason, I couldn't shake the anticipation I felt. Raphael hadn't spoken to me since that conversation in the hallway, but I knew he was somewhere near. I could feel his presence, like an invisible thread pulling me in. It wasn't until the end of the school day that I saw him again. I'd been walking out of the building when I noticed him leaning against his car, arms crossed, waiting. The sight of him caused my heart to skip a beat, and I instinctively slowed my steps. As I walked closer, he pushed himself off the car and straightened, eyes locking with mine. "Hey," he said softly, but the look in his eyes said everything. He wasn't just saying hello. There was something more beneath the surface. "Hey," I replied, trying to keep my cool even though my body was betraying me, a nervous energy running through my veins. "What are you doing here?" "I could ask you the same thing," he teased, the corner of his mouth quirking upward. "But I already know the answer." I couldn't help but laugh softly. "You're impossible." His eyes never left mine. There was a heaviness to the moment, something that hung between us like a storm about to break. His gaze dropped to my lips for a split second before he looked back into my eyes, his expression intense. "Do you want to get out of here?" he asked, his voice low, almost as if he was daring me to say yes. I froze for a moment, 1,000 thoughts rushing through my head. Was I ready for this? To take the next step with him? The tension between us was unbearable, and I knew it could go one of two ways. But looking at him now, feeling the heat of his gaze, I couldn't deny the pull I felt toward him. "Sure," I finally said, my voice barely above a whisper. Without another word, he led me to his car, and we drove in silence for a few moments. I couldn't quite figure out what to say, but the quiet wasn't uncomfortable. It was almost like we were both waiting for something. When we arrived at a small park on the outskirts of town, Raphael parked and turned to face me. "We don't have to do anything you're not ready for," he said, his voice surprisingly soft. "I know," I replied, though my heart was pounding in my chest. Raphael didn't say anything else. Instead, he reached over and gently brushed a strand of hair away from my face, his touch sending a shiver down my spine. He leaned in just slightly, his breath mingling with mine. "Dianna," he whispered, his voice like velvet. "I don't want to push you, but damn if I don't want to kiss you right now." My breath caught in my throat. I could feel the heat of his body so close to mine, the space between us almost unbearable. And yet, I didn't want him to pull away. I wanted more. I was about to say something, anything, when his lips were on mine, soft at first, teasing. The kiss was gentle, but I felt the hunger in it, the need that had been building between us. And as he deepened the kiss, my hands found their way to his chest, pulling him closer, the world around us falling away. It was everything. The passion, the heat, the electricity. My body was alive with it. And for the first time, I didn't hold back. I let myself feel it all, the intensity of the kiss, the way it made my heart race, the way my body responded to his. When we finally broke apart, both of us breathless, I knew there was no turning back. Whatever this was between us, it was just beginning.
Chapter 14. Secrets Beneath the Surface. The pull between us was undeniable, a bond that grew stronger with each passing day. Dianna and I had crossed a line, and there was no going back. Every time I saw her, every time she looked at me with those eyes full of confusion and curiosity, it felt like a game of fire and ice. I could see it in her, the way she was beginning to feel the same intensity, the same hunger that was burning inside me. But she wasn't ready to fully accept what we were, what we could be. I couldn't blame her for the hesitation. This wasn't just a normal relationship, it was something primal. It was fate. She was mine. And I was hers, but she didn't know it yet. The days that followed were a whirlwind of stolen moments and heated exchanges. Every time I saw her, every time I felt her near, it was like the world narrowed down to just the two of us. There was no escaping it. She had started to notice the tension, too. I saw it in the way she looked at me when our paths crossed, the way her breath hitched when our hands brushed or when I stood too close. She tried to act nonchalant, tried to play it cool, but I could smell the desire on her, feel it in the air. She was just as affected by this bond as I was, even if she didn't understand it yet. But I wasn't about to rush her. Dianna was a human, and this bond we shared, it was something she'd never experienced before. She couldn't possibly understand the weight of it all, and honestly, I didn't want to push her too far too fast. There was a fire burning between us, but I had to be careful not to set it off before she was ready. Even though I didn't want to rush her, I could feel myself slipping, losing control. She made me feel things I hadn't felt in years, things I didn't even know I could feel. The need to claim her, to mark her as mine, was overwhelming, but I kept it at bay, forcing myself to focus on the bigger picture. I had to stay focused on my training. I had to keep my eye on the prize. The past few weeks had been a blur of intense physical conditioning and sharpening my senses. My wolf had grown restless, eager for something I couldn't give it yet. It was pushing me harder, reminding me that I was getting closer to the moment I had been training for, the moment when I would finally get my revenge. I had been tracking the man who had wronged my family, the one who had taken everything from me. Every training session, every hunt, every hour spent in the woods had been a step toward that moment. But the more I focused on it, the more I realized how much I had to lose. And the more I realized that Dianna had somehow become a part of that equation. She wasn't just some human to me, she wasn't just some passing fling or distraction. No, she was my mate, the mate I didn't know I was searching for, the one who would change everything. Yet as close as we were becoming, I could sense something off. Dianna was starting to question things, starting to sense that there was more to me than I was letting on. I could see it in the way she studied me when she thought I wasn't looking, the way her brow furrowed when she caught me slipping into the woods for hours on end. She was starting to notice the changes in me, the way my senses seemed sharper, the way I sometimes got lost in thought, the way I didn't always seem to be present. She didn't know the truth, but I could tell she was getting close, and that only made the bond between us more dangerous. But there was no turning back now. The bond we shared had already marked her, whether she realized it or not. The pull between us was too strong, too consuming, but I had to be careful. If she learned too much too soon, if she found out the full extent of what I was and what this bond meant for both of us, I was afraid she might run. I couldn't let that happen, not now. But the deeper I fell for her, the harder it was to keep my secrets hidden. Every time she smiled at me, every time she laughed, every time she let her guard down and let me in just a little bit, it was like my wolf was begging me to give in, to tell her everything. To mark her, claim her as mine in every sense of the word, but I couldn't, not yet. And so I kept training, I kept pushing myself, kept reminding myself that my revenge was coming soon. But the closer I got to that moment, the harder it became to ignore the fear growing in my chest. What would happen if I lost her? What would happen if the truth came out too soon? Dianna was slipping through my fingers, and I was afraid I might not be able to catch her before she figured it all out. And so I held back for now. But I could feel the pressure building, the need for her growing with every passing day. Soon, I wouldn't be able to hide it anymore. And soon, Dianna would have to face the truth about us, about the mate bond, about the wolf inside me, about everything that was waiting for us on the other side. I wasn't ready to lose her, but I knew that if she couldn't accept me for what I was, there would be no way to keep her. And that thought, it terrified me more than anything else.
Chapter 15. Sparks and Shadows. The sun had barely begun to warm the pavement when I stepped onto campus, but my skin was already tingling, and not from the weather. It was him. Even before I saw Raphael, I felt him, like the echo of a dream I couldn't quite shake, or the beat of a drum I couldn't locate. He stood by the courtyard fountain, hands in his pockets, the morning light slicing across his cheekbones like something out of a painting. "Stop staring before you trip over your own hormones," Maddie murmured beside me, nudging my shoulder. "I'm not staring," I said, even as I very clearly was. She raised an eyebrow. "Please, you haven't shut up about that kiss since it happened." I gave her a sheepish look, and she rolled her eyes, grinning. Maddie had been my sounding board through all of it. The tension, the confusion, the impossible magnetism I felt whenever Raphael was near. She hadn't once doubted it. If anything, she seemed to be taking weird pride in having predicted it. "You said he looked at you like you were air, and he hadn't breathed in days," she said now, mimicking my dramatic retelling from 2 nights ago. "I hate you," I muttered with a smile. "Liar." I glanced back toward him and found him already watching me. Heat pooled low in my stomach. "God, his eyes," I whispered. "There." "Too intense to be human," Maddie offered, and I turned to her sharply. "What?" she added quickly. "I mean metaphorically." But her words stuck in my head. Too intense to be human. Because last night, during that kiss, something had shifted. It was more than the fire in my veins or the way he touched me like he knew me. His eyes had flashed, not just with desire, but with something almost otherworldly. "Okay, I have chem lab," Maddie said, stepping away. "But text me if he bites you, figuratively or literally." I smirked and flipped her off playfully. "You'll be the first to know." Later that day, Raphael caught up with me near the library steps. He didn't say anything at first, just leaned in, brushed his hand against mine, and let it linger. My breath stilled. "You busy?" he asked. "Do you care?" I challenged. He smirked, not even a little. We ended up skipping our last class. Again. He drove us to an old trail near the edge of town, the kind that led into the woods. I knew the whispers about what people did in cars up here, and yet, somehow, that wasn't why I followed him. It was the way he looked at me, like I was the only thing tethering him to reality. The walk was short, but every step buzzed with anticipation. When we finally stopped, he pulled me close without hesitation. One hand slipped to the small of my back, the other threading into my hair. "You're driving me insane," he said, his voice low and husky. "Every second I'm near you, I want more." Then his mouth was on mine. It wasn't soft this time. It was raw, demanding, the kind of kiss that turned blood to fire. My fingers curled into his shirt, anchoring myself as the world blurred. I felt him shudder against me, like he was holding something back. And for a second, just a flash, his eyes changed. Not metaphorically, not poetic lighting. They glowed just for a blink, a flicker of gold. My breath hitched, and I leaned back slightly. "Raphael," I said carefully, "your eyes, they looked different." He froze, just enough for me to feel the tension in his spine. "Lighting," he said too quickly. "You're imagining it." But I never imagined that. Before I could push further, he kissed me again, slower this time, distracting, sensual. And damn it, it worked. The fire returned, stronger than before, curling under my skin, dragging me under. But even as I melted against him, a sliver of suspicion lodged itself into my thoughts. That night, I texted Maddie. "You ever feel like you're falling for someone, and you don't even know who they really are?" She replied instantly. "Girl, you've been saying that since week 1. Just promise me if he turns out to be a vampire, I get to say, 'I told you so.'" I smiled, but something inside me didn't laugh. Because deep down, I knew this wasn't just a metaphor. There was something Raphael wasn't telling me. And I was getting closer to finding out what. Chapter 16, The Birthday. I didn't sleep much. Every time I closed my eyes, I felt Raphael's mouth on mine again, demanding, wild, like he couldn't get enough of me. And those eyes, that flicker of gold, not metaphorical, not imagined. He said it was lighting. I told myself I believed him. Because today was my birthday. I texted Maddie first thing in the morning. "I'm officially legal. What's the punishment for drinking Baileys in my morning cocoa?" She replied with a picture of herself in a bathrobe. "Sipping from a mug labeled 'Men are temporary. Fries are forever.' It's your birthday. You're allowed to be feral, just don't text your ex." I grinned, heart lighter already. By noon, Raphael picked me up. He didn't say much at first, just kissed my cheek and handed me a single sunflower, my favorite. "You remembered," I said. "I remember everything about you," he replied simply, then opened the car door for me like a gentleman from another century. He drove us to a hidden cabin nestled in pine trees, the snow glittering around it like something from a dream. Inside, fairy lights twinkled, music played softly, and the smell of chocolate cake filled the air. "Are you trying to ruin all future birthdays for me?" I asked, stunned. "That's the plan," he said with a soft smile. We danced in the kitchen, kissed in front of the fire, and laughed like time didn't exist. It was perfect. Simple hours. And then, just as the sky outside turned a dusky lavender, he handed me a small black velvet box. I blinked. This wasn't necessary. "Open it." I did. Inside was a pendant, a crescent moon of antique silver with a single deep crimson stone in its center. It was beautiful, yes, but more than that, it felt heavy, like it carried a weight I couldn't see. I looked up at him slowly. "Raphael, where did you find this?" "It belonged to my mother." The air shifted. I held the pendant delicately, suddenly nervous. "I can't take this," I said. "I won't." "You will." I shook my head. "This is yours, it's her." "It's yours now," he said, stepping closer. "She'd want you to have it." I stared up at him. "You barely talk about her. Why this? Why now?" He didn't answer right away, just took the chain from my fingers and slowly fastened it around my neck. His fingers brushed the back of my neck, and I felt something inside me soften, something I didn't even know was tense. "This means something, doesn't it?" I whispered. "Yes." He didn't say more, but the look in his eyes, raw and open, made something in me ache. I reached for his hand and squeezed it gently. "Thank you," I said, and meant it more than I could say. That evening, we met Maddie and a few others at our favorite burger bar, a neon-drenched diner where the fries were legendary, and the milkshakes came in metal tins. "Birthday queen incoming," Maddie yelled the second I walked in. She shoved a plastic tiara on my head and draped a glittery sash over my shoulders. "You've dethroned Elsa," she said solemnly. "Can I make it snow on command?" I asked. "Only if you chug a frozen margarita." Then Raphael stepped beside me, his palm resting lightly on my lower back. "I brought someone," he murmured near my ear. I turned and nearly did a double take. A guy stood behind him, tall, muscular, wearing black like it was his religion. Sharp features, even sharper cheekbones. His entire vibe screamed, "Don't talk to me unless you want to be emotionally damaged." "This is Luca," Raphael said, "one of my oldest friends." Luca gave a short nod. Before I could say anything, Maddie stepped forward. She blinked. "You're the friend." Luca's gaze flicked over her. "You're the one who laughed like a hyena outside, aren't you?" Maddie's jaw dropped. "I'm sorry, do I know you?" "No, and I already feel like I've heard too much of your voice." "Excuse me," she snapped. "You're excused." Maddie bristled, hands on her hips. "Wow, rude and arrogant. Did you come out of the womb this irritating, or is it something you practiced?" "I was trained by professionals." "Let me guess, prison guards." Luca smirked. I turned to Raphael, whispering, "They're going to kill each other." He chuckled, "Or end up making out in a supply closet." "Doubtful," I said. But I wasn't sure. The heat in their glares could set fire to the furniture. Later that night, Raphael and I walked back to his car under the stars. I toyed with the pendant at my throat, watching how the stone caught the moonlight. "You wore it all evening," he said. I did. "Do you like it?" "I'm not sure I deserve it, but I'll take care of it." He leaned close and whispered, "Good, it's already a part of you now." I didn't understand what he meant, but I didn't press. For once, I just wanted to feel the moment and not question it. Then a voice rang out from the shadows ahead of us. "Raphael, you're hard to find when you're trying to be a human." We turned. A woman stepped into the glow of the street lamp. She was tall, dressed in a dark coat, her hair braided into a silver rope that shimmered under the moonlight. Her presence was sharp, like a blade disguised as beauty. I instinctively moved a little closer to Raphael. "Sierra," he said, voice suddenly guarded. But not unfamiliar. He knew her. and not just in passing. Her eyes flicked to me, assessed. This is her. Yes, he said simply. My brows furrowed. Her. Sierra's lips curved. Pretty, fragile-looking, though. Hey, I said, bristling. She ignored me, stepping in closer to Raphael. You've been keeping secrets, even from me. He didn't look away. Not everything's your business. She smiled again, cool and unreadable. It will be, soon. Then she turned to me fully. Happy birthday, Dianna. The way she said my name made it sound like a challenge. And just like that, the birthday magic cracked around the edges. Something about Sierra, her timing, her tone, the way Raphael didn't move as she leaned in made my skin crawl. There was history there. I wasn't stupid. I could feel it. As she turned and walked away, disappearing into the dark like smoke, I looked up at Raphael. Who is she? He hesitated. An ally. That wasn't the whole truth. But I knew better than to press now. The way his jaw was set told me I'd get nothing else tonight. Still, the pendant at my throat suddenly felt warmer, heavier, like Sierra's presence had somehow activated something in it or in me. And though I smiled as he kissed me goodnight, part of me couldn't shake the chill curling under my skin.
Chapter 17, The First Fracture. I hadn't meant to give her the pendant. But the second she leaned against me, laughing into my chest like nothing else in the world existed, it just happened. My fingers had reached for the cord around my neck, tugged it free like muscle memory. Happy birthday, I murmured, slipping it around hers. Dianna looked down at it, startled. Raphael, this looks old. It is. Her brows pulled together. Then I really can't accept it. You can, I met her eyes, voice low, you already have. She hesitated, fingers brushing over the stone, a deep blue wrapped in silver filigree. It hummed faintly against her skin. She couldn't feel the ancient enchantment woven into it, but I could, and my wolf settled just a little knowing she had it. Why does it feel warm? She asked, suspicious. I leaned in, lips brushing her ear. Because it knows you belong to me. She inhaled sharply, and for a second, something melted in her. But she didn't take it off. Later, I found Sierra behind the training yard, exactly where I knew she'd be. I assume you did it, she said flatly before I even opened my mouth. She wears it now. She gave a tight nod. The rogues are gathering again, 3 new sightings along the east line, and your patrols are stretched too thin. My father thinks Alpha Dane is moving pieces. I ran a hand through my hair. I'm calling the Allied Council. You should have done that last week. I glanced sideways. You're here now, Sierra. That means your father still believes in the Alliance. Don't test how long that faith lasts. I didn't respond. She folded her arms. You're not thinking straight. You're too tangled up in her. She's my mate. She's a human. I looked away, a muscle in my jaw twitching. Doesn't change a thing. That shut her up for half a second. I'll help, she said, but if this war breaks open and your girl becomes our liability. She won't, I growled. Sierra raised both brows. Then you better start preparing her for what's coming, fast. That night, Dianna dragged me out to her campus's empty arboretum, wanting air, she said, but I knew she just wanted an excuse to kiss in the dark where no one could see. She leaned into me, laughing about something Maddie said, playing with the pendant absent-mindedly. I kissed her hair, held her close. Then I smelled it. Rogue close. Too close. Dianna, I said sharply, pulling her behind me. She blinked. What is it? And then the beast leapt from the shadows. I shoved her to the ground and tore forward, my shift detonating from under my skin. Bones snapped, muscles ruptured. I exploded into fur and fang mid-lunge, landing hard between Dianna and the rogue. My wolf slammed into the intruder, snarling, claws out, teeth locking onto the rogue's throat. We tumbled across the clearing, snapping, tearing, blood hot and fast. I didn't hear her scream, but I felt her fear. The rogue finally went limp beneath me, dead. My fur was slick with blood, not mine, and I turned slowly, panting, to face her. Dianna stood frozen, face white, hands shaking, eyes wide with betrayal, terror, and something else I couldn't name. Raphael, she whispered. I padded forward slowly, keeping low. She flinched. What the hell, what are yous? I shifted back, the air crackled, my knees hit the earth, chest heaving. Naked, vulnerable, marked in blood. I wanted to tell you, I rasped. I swear I did. She stared at me like I was a stranger. You turned into a wolf. Yes. You killed someone. I saved you. Silence. The pendant around her neck flickered faintly in the moonlight. She gripped it hard like it was the only thing anchoring her to reality. She choked, backing up. I just. And then she turned and ran. My heart didn't break. It shattered.
Chapter 18. The Shift and Acceptance. I couldn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it. For days, everything felt like it was spinning out of control. The world I had known, my safe little bubble, had cracked open, and what lay beyond was terrifying. Raphael wasn't just a guy I had fallen for. He was a werewolf. A creature I had only ever read about in books, something that was supposed to be a myth, a fairy tale. But no, Raphael's eyes had turned gold, his body had shifted into something monstrous. And in those moments, I couldn't even recognize the man I had let myself care about. My heart screamed at me to run, to get away from the chaos, but I couldn't. For days, I didn't see him at all. It was like he had disappeared. I kept walking through the halls of college, scanning the crowds, hoping I would catch a glimpse of him, even a shadow. I hadn't heard from him either. No texts, no calls, not even a message to check in. And somehow it made everything worse. He had left me to process it all on my own, and I hated him for it. But at the same time, I missed him. I missed the way his touch had made me feel alive. I missed the warmth of his smile, the way he made me feel special, wanted. He had pulled me into his world, and now he had disappeared without a trace. It was physically painful. The ache in my chest was something I couldn't ignore. The emptiness, the longing were consuming me. I had never felt so alone. I had never felt so lost. And yet I couldn't stop thinking about him, about us. I kept replaying every moment, every touch, every kiss we had shared. How had everything gone so wrong? On the fourth day, after yet another morning of walking through the college without seeing him, I broke. I couldn't stay away from him any longer. I needed answers. I needed him. It was early afternoon when I made up my mind. I hadn't seen him around, but that didn't mean he wasn't around. I could feel him. There was a pull, a tug in my chest that led me to him, even if I didn't know where he was hiding. I walked out of the building, my steps quick and determined, heading toward the woods near the outskirts of campus where we had met the first time. The woods seemed to hold their breath as I walked deeper into them, like they knew something I didn't. But it was quiet, too quiet. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched, that he was near, hidden somewhere just out of sight. When I reached the cabin, I stopped. The sight of it, so familiar yet so foreign now, sent a shiver down my spine. I hadn't been back since my birthday, since the night everything had changed. But now it felt like the only place I could find some peace. The door was ajar, just like I remembered it. I pushed it open, my heart pounding in my chest. The cabin was still warm, but the air felt thick with uncertainty. And then I heard the sound of footsteps behind me. I didn't need to turn around. I knew it was him. I could feel him, the presence that had become both my salvation and my greatest fear. "Raphael," I whispered, my voice barely audible. He stepped into the cabin, his eyes searching mine. There was something in his gaze, something raw, something torn. It was like he had been waiting for me to come, and he didn't know whether to be relieved or scared to see me. "I didn't think you'd come," he said quietly, his voice low and strained. I looked at him, trying to process the emotions running through me. Anger, confusion, longing. But above all, there was this ache in my chest, something that screamed, "I need you." I needed him more than I had ever needed anything. "I couldn't stay away anymore," I said, stepping closer. "You left me with no answers, Raphael. You disappeared. I didn't know what to think. I didn't know what to feel." He didn't respond right away. He just stood there, looking at me, like he was waiting for something. "I'm sorry," he finally said, his voice breaking. "I didn't mean to hurt you, I took a deep breath, interrupting him. "I don't need excuses, I need the truth. I need to understand, all of it." He seemed to struggle for a moment, like he was trying to find the right words. But when he spoke, It was as if a weight had been lifted from his shoulders. I'm a werewolf, Dianna, a part of a world you can't even imagine, and I never wanted you to be involved in this. I never wanted you to be part of my world, but I can't take back what we've shared, and I can't let you go. I swallowed hard, feeling a rush of emotion overwhelm me. There it was, the truth, the cold, hard truth, and yet, I wasn't running. I wasn't running from him. I couldn't. I don't understand it, I said, my voice shaking. I don't know how to accept this. You don't have to understand it all at once, he said, his voice soft. But I need you to understand that I never wanted to keep this from you, and I need you. I need you, Dianna, more than you know. Tears pricked at the corners of my eyes, but I held them back. I wasn't going to cry. I wasn't going to let this world break me. I'll accept you, I said, my voice firm now. I'll accept all of it. I can't promise I'll understand it right away, but I'm not going to run from you. Not anymore. Not after everything. Raphael stepped toward me, his eyes searching mine. He reached out, gently cupping my face in his hands. You're sure? You're willing to stay in this world, even if it's dangerous? I nodded, tears slipping down my cheeks. I'm sure. I'm with you, Raphael. I'm not leaving you. And that was when I felt it, the warmth of his touch, the deep bond between us that had always been there, even when I didn't fully understand it. I felt like I had just crossed some invisible line, one that would forever bind us together. I don't deserve you, he whispered, his voice full of emotion. Maybe not, I said with a small smile, but you've got me anyway. I felt his lips brush against my forehead, and I closed my eyes, letting myself savor the moment. I had no idea what the future would hold, but in this moment I was ready to face it, ready to face his world, ready to face whatever came next with him. Chapter 19. Unseen Battles and a New Resolve. The weight of Raphael's words lingered in the air, like a shadow I couldn't shake. It felt like the world around us had suddenly grown heavier, more dangerous, more real. The warmth of his touch, the bond between us, had solidified in that moment, but the reality of his world had begun to take root in my mind. I had been so caught up in the idea of being with him, in the allure of the connection we shared, that I hadn't fully understood the cost of living in this world, the world of wolves, of packs, of wars fought in the shadows. I didn't want to think about the battles, the dangers, the lives lost, but I couldn't escape it anymore. The tension was there, beneath the surface, and it was only a matter of time before I would have to face it head-on. The night Raphael had shared his past with me, I learned the truth of what had happened to his pack, of the countless battles they had fought, and of the devastation that still lingered in his eyes. He had lost so much. People he loved, people he trusted. His family, scattered and broken by forces beyond his control. I knew it wasn't just the physical pain that had cut him so deeply. It was the emotional wounds that had festered for years, wounds that no amount of time could heal. And yet, despite everything, he was still standing. He was still fighting. But I wasn't ready for that kind of fight. At least, I didn't think I was. Days passed, and the reality of what Raphael had said settled in. I watched him move through his days with a certain heaviness, a quiet kind of strength that I couldn't quite put my finger on. The world he was a part of, it was brutal, dangerous. There were enemies, threats lurking in every shadow, and I had no place in that world. Not yet. But every time I looked into his eyes, I saw something else, something more, a need to protect, a need to shield me from the darkness he carried with him. He didn't want me to be part of this life, this war. He wanted to keep me safe. But I couldn't just sit back and let him shoulder it all alone. I knew that now. I had to do something. I couldn't let him fight alone. I couldn't let him carry that burden when I had the strength to help him. It was late one evening when I finally made my decision. The moon was full, casting a pale glow over everything, and I found myself standing at the edge of the clearing where Raphael often trained. He was alone, his back to me as he practiced, his movements fluid and precise. But there was something different in the way he carried himself tonight. He was tired, worn down. His usual intensity was subdued, and it made something ache deep inside me. I approached him slowly, my heart beating in my chest. I had never felt more sure of anything in my life than I did at that moment. Raphael, I said softly, my voice trembling despite my resolve. He turned to face me, his expression softening when he saw me. "Dianna," he said quietly, his gaze searching mine as though looking for something. "What is it?" "I need to train," I said, the words tumbling out of me before I could second-guess them. "I need to learn, to fight. I want to be able to stand beside you, not just watch from the sidelines." For a moment, he said nothing. His eyes locked onto mine, searching, probing. He opened his mouth as though to argue, but I stopped him before he could speak. "I know what you're going to say," I continued, stepping closer. "You'll tell me it's dangerous, that you want to protect me, but I don't need protection, not anymore. I want to be strong enough to fight for us, to fight for you. I can't be a bystander while you face all of this alone. I won't be." Raphael's gaze softened, and I saw the conflict within him. "Dianna, this world, it's not what you think. It's not just about fighting. It's about survival, about losing things you can't get back. I don't want you to be part of that. It's dangerous, too dangerous." I shook my head, frustration building inside me. "You don't get it, do you?" I said, my voice trembling with emotion. "I've already crossed that line. I'm not the same person I was when I first met you. I'm part of this world now, whether you like it or not. And I refuse to stay in the shadows, hoping everything will be okay. I want to fight, Raphael. I want to stand beside you. I want to be there with you when things get tough, because I know you're not invincible. And I can't just sit here waiting for something to happen. I need to be ready." There was silence between us, thick and heavy. Raphael's eyes softened, but there was still a sadness in them. "I can't ask you to do this," he whispered, stepping closer, his hand reaching out to touch my cheek. "I can't ask you to bear this weight." "You don't have to ask," I said, my voice steady now. "I'm making the choice, Raphael. I'm making this decision for me. I need to know that I'm not just waiting around for something to happen. I need to know I can stand on my own with you." He closed his eyes for a moment, as though wrestling with himself, and when he opened them again, there was a new understanding in them, reluctant but unwavering. "All right," he said softly, "but you need to understand this isn't just about training. It's about more than that. This life, it's not just a fight for strength, it's a fight for survival. And there will be times when you want to give up, but if you're ready for that, then I'll help you." I nodded, my heart pounding with determination. "I'm ready." And that was it. The decision had been made. I had stepped into this world, and now I was going to learn how to fight for it. Chapter 20, Training in the Shadows. The days following my decision to train were a blur of motion. The moon hung high in the sky, casting long, silvery shadows over the forest where Raphael and I had spent so many hours, and where I now found myself, learning. I was learning not just to fight, but to survive in a world I had only begun to understand. Raphael had agreed to train me, though his reluctance was palpable. Every time we practiced, there was a quiet tension between us. I knew he was holding back, afraid of pushing me too hard, afraid of seeing me hurt. But I didn't need his protection anymore. I needed his guidance, his strength. We started with the basics, hand-to-hand combat, reflexes, and agility. But it was more than just physical training. It was about learning how to read the world around me, how to sense danger before it even arrived. There were moments when I felt completely out of my depth, moments when I wanted to give up, to walk away from the danger that surrounded us. But each time, Raphael was there, pushing me to keep going, to dig deeper into myself. "Don't hesitate," he would say, his voice sharp as we sparred. "In this world, hesitation gets people killed." And I knew he was right. I could see the weight of his words in his eyes, in the way his muscles tensed when he anticipated my next move, in the way he watched me like a hawk, never letting me slack off. Every bruise, every aching muscle, every drop of sweat, it all felt like a step closer to becoming someone who could stand beside him, someone who could fight for the pack. But the training wasn't just physical. The mental toll was something I hadn't anticipated. As Raphael guided me through the lessons, I realized how much I still didn't know. There was so much to this world, so much darkness hiding in the corners, in the hearts of those I had once considered allies. I wasn't just learning to fight, I was learning to see the world with different eyes. One evening, after a particularly brutal training session, I found myself sitting on the edge of the clearing, my body sore, my mind racing. Raphael was a few feet away, practicing with a dagger, his movements precise and fluid. The crackle of the fire nearby was the only sound that filled the silence between us. "You're quiet," Raphael said, his voice softer than usual as he approached, wiping sweat from his brow. "What's on your mind?" I didn't immediately answer, my gaze lingering on the fire. There was so much I wanted to say, so much I didn't know how to express. But it all came tumbling out, unbidden, raw. "I'm not sure I can do this," I confessed, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm not sure I'm strong enough." Raphael knelt down in front of me, his expression unreadable. He reached out and took my hand, his fingers warm against my skin. "Dianna, you're stronger than you think," he said, his voice firm. "But strength isn't just about what you can do physically. It's about what you can endure, what you're willing to fight for, and you're willing to fight for this world, for us." I met his gaze, the vulnerability in his eyes, something I hadn't seen before. It made my heart ache. He had always been so strong, so resolute, and yet here he was sharing a part of himself that no one else had seen, a part of him that was just as fragile as mine. "I'm not afraid of the fight," I said quietly, "but I'm afraid of losing you." Raphael's grip on my hand tightened, his eyes softening. "You won't lose me. I won't let you. We're in this together, Dianna. No matter what happens, I'll be here." The words felt like a promise, a bond forged in the heat of battle, tested by time and trial. But I knew that even the strongest bonds could be broken. The reality of the war we were facing was more dangerous than either of us could predict. The next few weeks were a blur of training, planning, and more training. Every day brought new challenges, new lessons. But as the days wore on, I could feel myself growing stronger, more capable. I could sense the changes in my body, how my muscles had begun to tighten, how my reflexes had sharpened. But it was the internal changes that made the biggest difference. The fear, the doubt, they still lingered, but they no longer controlled me. Raphael and I were not just training, we were becoming partners in this fight. Every time I landed a blow, every time I blocked his strikes, I could see the flicker of pride in his eyes. And it pushed me to keep going. I wasn't just training for myself anymore. I was training for him, for the pack, for the world that I had chosen to fight for. It was late one evening when I had a breakthrough. We had been sparring for hours, our movements becoming increasingly fluid. When I saw the opportunity, Raphael left himself open just for a second. A split second. Without hesitation, I took it. I lunged forward, striking with the precision I had spent weeks honing. Raphael staggered back, surprise flashing in his eyes as I stood there, panting, waiting for him to recover. "Well done," he said, his voice low and full of admiration. "You've come a long way, Dianna." I couldn't help but smile, my heart swelling with pride. For the first time in my life, I felt like I was standing on equal ground with him, like I was ready for whatever came next. But the world outside the training grounds hadn't forgotten about us. The war was still coming, the storm still brewing. And as much as I wished I could ignore it, I knew that every battle we fought, whether physical or emotional, was just a preparation for the war that would inevitably come. But I was no longer afraid of that future, because now I was ready to face it. Chapter 21, Frostbite and Friendly Fire. The snow fell heavier as I made my way through the city streets, my mind still swirling with thoughts I couldn't quite untangle. When I rounded the corner, I was surprised to see Luca standing in front of a small cafe, holding a cup in his hand. "Dianna," he said with a grin, clearly pleased to see me. "Cold out here, huh?" I raised an eyebrow at him. "You're standing out here in this weather for what exactly? Making a fashion statement?" "No," Luca replied with a chuckle. "Just enjoying the cold while it lasts. What about you?" "Trying to clear my head," I said, rubbing my hands together for warmth. He looked at me thoughtfully for a moment. "You know, if you're trying to warm up, I'd suggest a drink from inside," he said, nodding toward the cafe door. "They make a mean hot chocolate." I tilted my head, considering. Hot chocolate, huh? Can't say no to that. Just as I was about to step inside, a familiar voice rang out behind me. Well, if it is Luca." I turned to see Maddie walking toward us, her arms crossed over her chest with a skeptical expression on her face. She made no attempt to hide the sarcasm in her voice. Dianna, don't let him fool you. He's probably here to give you more of his charming advice. Luca raised an eyebrow at Maddie. You've got a lot of opinions for someone who wasn't invited into this conversation. Maddie smirked and threw her hands up in mock surrender. Oh, I wasn't aware you two were having a private conversation. My bad. Don't worry, Maddie, I said, trying to diffuse the tension. Luca wasn't actually giving me advice. He's just trying to look like he knows what he's talking about. Luca grinned, clearly unfazed. Ah, always the skeptic. I'm just offering a cup of hot chocolate, nothing sinister about it. Maddie didn't back down. Right, nothing sinister at all. Just a guy in a cafe, alone, offering drinks to people who don't know him well enough to trust him. Oh, you're still on about this, Luca laughed, crossing his arms. Are we really going to pretend like you've never accepted a drink from someone you do know? I don't know if I trust you enough to answer that question, Luca, Maddie shot back, eyes narrowing playfully. I could feel the playful tension between them, like a game they'd been playing for years. But it wasn't lost on me that despite the teasing, there was an unspoken understanding beneath it all, one that made me curious about the history between them. You're unbelievable, Maddie said with a grin, shaking her head. I'll take the hot chocolate, though. I'm not completely heartless. You'll be the first to admit it, huh? Luca teased, handing her the cup. She took it with a dramatic sigh. Fine, but don't think this means I trust you. Don't worry, Maddie, Luca replied with a smirk. I wouldn't want to give you the satisfaction of being right. I couldn't help but laugh at the back and forth, even though a part of me wondered if I'd ever get to the bottom of their little rivalry. The whole exchange felt like a dance they knew well, playful, but never quite finished. So, Dianna, Luca said, turning back to me, you going to drink that hot chocolate, or are you just going to stand there freezing? Right, I said, shaking off my thoughts. Let's go inside. As we stepped into the warmth of the cafe, I caught a glimpse of Maddie and Luca exchanging one last look. There was a challenge in it, one I wasn't sure would ever really go away, and I couldn't help but wonder how this rivalry would unfold. But for now, it was just a simple, chilly afternoon with two people who seemed to love getting under each other's skin.
Chapter 22, Ashes and Embers. A year. A year since the Iron Fangs ripped my pack apart. A year since we lost everything, the territory, our home, the very foundation of the Nightshade Pack, but not everything was lost. We had survived. We had rebuilt. From the 8 of us that crawled from the wreckage, we grew. We weren't the same pack we once were, but we were something else, something stronger, something more dangerous. The pack had grown. From the broken remnants of the past, we had rebuilt ourselves into something formidable. 28 wolves now, each one trained, each one loyal. And now they looked to me for leadership, not just because I was the heir, but because they had seen my resolve. They had seen what I was willing to sacrifice to keep them alive. I stood atop the ridge overlooking our new territory, the cold wind biting at my skin. The land was rugged, untamed, a stark contrast to the territory we once ruled. It wasn't home, not yet, but it was ours, and that was enough for now. Sierra's presence behind me was a quiet comfort. She was the alpha of a neighboring pack, the only ally we had left after the massacre. Her pack had offered us shelter, resources, and support when we had nothing. It had been a year since we'd started working together, and in that time we'd grown close. Her eyes, sharp and calculating, scanned the horizon as I did. She had always been a steady presence, but there was an edge to her today, the kind of edge that came when you knew trouble was closing in. Iron Fangs are getting bolder, Sierra said, her voice low, the tension between us thick. They know you're alive. They've been hunting for you ever since. I didn't need her to tell me that. I could feel it in my bones, the weight of their pursuit, the heavy pull of their hatred. They had taken everything from me, from all of us, and they wouldn't stop until they were sure they had finished the job. Alpha Dane wanted me dead. It wasn't just about taking territory anymore. It was about erasing the last trace of Nightshade blood. They won't stop until I'm dead, I muttered, clenching my fists. Dane's not just after me to finish what he started. He wants to make sure the Nightshade bloodline is wiped out, completely. Sierra's expression hardened, her jaw tight. We're not going to let that happen. We've been hunting them for a year. We've taken out their scouts, their lone wolves, but they know we're coming, and they're preparing for us. I turned to face her, my gaze hard. It's time we take the fight to them. It's time to stop running. Sierra met my gaze, her lips pressing into a thin line. If we raid their territory, we risk exposing our position. They'll retaliate and they'll come for us with everything they have. I know, I replied, my voice flat, but what other choice do we have? If we keep hiding, they'll come for us anyway. We can't keep running. We have to make them understand that we're not the ones they can wipe out so easily. I could hear the growl in Luca's voice before I even saw him. He had been training with the pack, sharpening his skills as beta. He was the one I trusted most when it came to leading the charge, to rallying the warriors of the pack. He stepped forward now, a fire in his eyes that matched my own. We've been hunting them for months now, Luca said, his fists clenched at his sides. We know where they are, we know how they operate, and we know we can hit them hard. If we don't strike first, we're just sitting ducks waiting for them to pick us off one by one. He was right. We had spent the last year picking off stragglers, making small moves here and there, trying to reclaim what we'd lost. But we had to do more. We had to show Alpha Dane that we weren't just survivors. We were the Nightshade pack, and we weren't going to die quietly. Later in the quiet of the war room, I sat alone, my mind 1,000 miles away. The pack had gathered their supplies, their weapons, everyone was preparing for the mission ahead. But I couldn't focus on the task. All I could think about was the responsibility that had been thrust onto my shoulders. It wasn't just about leading a pack, it was about leading them into battle against the very wolves who had destroyed our lives. My pack, from the 8 survivors to 28 strong, they had rallied around me. They followed me not because I was the heir to the Nightshade line, but because they trusted me. They believed in the cause. They believed in revenge. I could feel the weight of their hopes, their expectations. They wanted this fight as much as I did, but there were times when I wondered if I could do it. Could I lead them to victory? Could I keep them alive? I looked out at the camp from my quarters, watching as the wolves prepared for the upcoming battle. My mind raced through every possible scenario, the strategies, the risks, the enemies we would face. It all came down to one thing: we had to strike hard and we had to strike first, because if we didn't, there would be no pack left to fight for. Sierra joined me again just before nightfall. Her presence was always a comfort, a reminder that I wasn't alone in this. Her pack had fought beside us for months now. She had become more than just an ally, she was a friend, a trusted confidant. They'll come for you soon, Sierra said quietly, but you're not alone, you have us, we'll fight with you, Raphael. I turned to her, my heart heavy with the weight of the decision I was about to make. I won't run anymore. We take the fight to them. We hit them where it hurts. We show them what happens when you try to wipe out the Nightshade pack. She nodded, her eyes hard with determination. Then let's show them. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I stood on the ridge overlooking our new home, my pack gathered behind me. 28 wolves, strong and ready for the fight ahead. We had lost everything before, but we weren't going to lose again. Alpha Dane thought he could finish what he started. He thought he could wipe out the last of the Nightshade bloodline. But he was wrong. I wasn't just the heir to the Nightshade pack anymore. I was its alpha, and we would fight together. Chapter 23, Broken Bonds. I knew the tension between Dianna and Sierra had been growing, but I had hoped it would pass. It wasn't anything serious, nothing to worry about, at least that's what I kept telling myself. Sierra had become a close ally, nothing more. She was someone I could rely on for the tasks at hand, a political necessity in our fight against the Iron Fangs. We had been working side by side on so many things, and I had to admit, her skills were invaluable. But Dianna didn't see that. She saw something else. Something that made her uneasy. It wasn't just the time I spent with Sierra, it was the way I trusted her, the way I spoke about her. Dianna had noticed, and it cut her deeper than I had ever imagined. I hadn't meant for any of this to happen. I didn't want Dianna to feel insecure. She was my mate. She was everything I had been fighting for. I'd never wanted to hurt her. But it seemed the more I tried to explain myself, the more I saw the hurt in her eyes. Raphael, I'm just saying, Diana's voice was quieter than usual, strained as she approached me. You spend a lot of time with her. She's just an ally, Dianna, that's all. I felt the weight of her gaze on me, the way her eyes hardened as she looked at me. I know, she said, her tone flat, but you don't need to explain. I see how she looks at you. I didn't know what to say. It wasn't like that with Sierra, it never had been, but I didn't know how to convince Dianna of that without making her feel more insecure. And I couldn't help but feel a sense of guilt eating at me, knowing that I was pushing Dianna away by being around Sierra so much. It was all politics, all strategy, but it felt like something more, something I didn't want to acknowledge. I had to make her understand. I needed her to know that my loyalty, my heart, belonged to her, but I was failing, and every second that passed made that truth more clear. I'll keep my distance from her, I said, forcing myself to maintain eye contact. I don't want you to feel like this is anything more than what it is. I swear it's just alliance. Dianna didn't reply immediately. She just stared at me, searching my face as if looking for something I wasn't ready to give. She looked at me the way she always did, like she needed more from me than I was willing to offer, and that stung. All right, she said, her voice tight, but I just hope you're telling me the truth. Before I could respond, she turned and walked off, her back stiff as she left. I watched her go, helpless as the weight of everything I couldn't fix, of everything I couldn't explain, settled in my chest. The night was quiet as I lingered in the training grounds, trying to clear my head. I had said the right things. I had promised Dianna that there was nothing more between me and Sierra, but it didn't feel like enough. The truth of the matter was I was losing her and I couldn't stop it. Then my heart dropped. A scream. Dianna's scream. Time seemed to slow as the sound of her pain ripped through the air. My body froze in place, fear flooding every inch of me. I knew that sound. I had heard it before when the Iron Fangs attacked my pack. That same scream, that same terror, the sound of someone fighting for their life. I didn't think I couldn't. My wolf surged forward, my muscles shifting, my body moving before my mind could catch up. The bond we shared pulsed painfully, telling me that Dianna was in danger, that she was hurt, and it sent me running. I ran like I had never run before, pushing my body past its limits, my wolf howling with urgency. The bond with my mate was a constant pull, a tug of pain and fear, and I could feel it deep in my chest, her pain, her fear. She needed me. It was like déjà vu, a flashback to that night when the Iron Fangs attacked my pack and I couldn't get there in time. I had failed then. I couldn't fail again. Not now, not with Dianna. I pushed harder, I moved faster. I could hear her heartbeat in my mind, fading, weaker with each second. I wasn't going to let her slip away. I reached her just in time. She was unconscious, her body lying crumpled on the ground, barely alive. A monstrous Ironfang wolf loomed over her, ready to finish what it had started. Rage boiled inside me as I shifted into my full wolf form and pounced, tearing into the beast with brutal force. The fight was over quickly. I didn't hold back, not for a second. The wolf was dead before it had time to react, its blood staining the earth beneath us. But it was too late. Dianna was still unconscious. I carefully gathered her into my arms, ignoring the pain in my chest. I carried her back to the pack, my mind running through the worst possibilities. She wasn't moving, wasn't waking. The doctors worked swiftly, but nothing they did could heal the guilt gnawing at me. When her parents arrived, they were told she had slipped off the mountain on her way home, a lie that I needed to tell, a lie that would keep her attacker's presence a secret. They didn't know the truth, didn't know how close they had come to losing her. Her body lay motionless in the hospital bed, bruised and battered. The sight gutted me. I had let her down. I had brought her into this world, into this fight, and now she was here, broken and hurt. I should have kept her away from it all. I shouldn't have gotten closer. I should have kept my distance, protected her from everything, and now she was paying for my mistakes. I couldn't look at her without feeling the weight of everything I had done wrong. And then when she finally stirred, when her eyes fluttered open, my heart shattered. "Dianna," I whispered, my voice barely audible, but I couldn't say the words I wanted to. I couldn't tell her that everything I had done was for her, that I had never meant for her to be hurt, because in the end it was my fault she was lying there, unconscious and fragile. "Raphael," she breathed, reaching out for me weakly. Her hand brushed against mine, and it felt like a jagged knife in my chest. I stood there, feeling my wolf growl at the distance I had put between us. It pushed, begged me to stay close to my mate, to comfort her, but I couldn't. I couldn't let her get closer to me again. Tears burned the back of my eyes, but I blinked them away. Without a word, I turned my back on her. I had to leave for her safety, for her peace. I walked away, my steps heavy, my chest suffocating with guilt and remorse. Every part of me screamed to turn back, to hold her, to stay by her side. But I fought that force. My wolf howled in protest, but I ignored it. This was for the best. I didn't look back, not once. But with every step I took, my heart broke. And I knew that no matter how much I wanted to be with her, I could never let myself be close to her again.
Chapter 24, Shattered Heart. When I woke up, I wasn't sure where I was at first. The world felt hazy, distant. My head throbbed, and the pain in my chest made it hard to breathe. I blinked a few times, trying to focus, only to be met with the soft, concerned faces of my parents and Maddie hovering at my side. The sterile white walls of a hospital room loomed around me, and I realized I wasn't at home. "Dianna," my mom whispered, her voice shaking. "Thank the gods you're awake." I tried to sit up, but was immediately stopped by the weight of exhaustion, my limbs heavy like stone. I didn't have the strength to do much more than stare back at her. I scanned the room, my heart sinking as I noticed a glaring absence. Raphael wasn't there. I swallowed hard, the ache in my chest deepening. He should have been here, right? He was supposed to be here. He had to be, but he was not. "Where's Raphael?" My voice was weak, barely a whisper. Maddie exchanged a glance with my parents, her eyes clouded with pity. He's not here, Dianna." "Why?" I forced myself to sit up a little straighter, but it felt like my body was betraying me, each movement slow, painful, like my bones had turned to jelly. My head swam with dizziness, but I couldn't ignore the question gnawing at me. "Dianna, you slipped. You fell off the mountain," my mom said, her words gentle, like they were meant to shield me from something. I blinked, confused. Fell off the mountain. I didn't remember anything. A wave of frustration hit me. My chest tightened as I thought about everything. How I was supposed to feel like I could rely on Raphael, how I believed in everything we had. But now I was here alone and he wasn't by my side. I needed him. I wanted him. The pendant around my neck caught my attention, and I instinctively reached for it, my fingers brushing against the cold metal. It burned against my skin, and I flinched. It hurt. Not physically, but emotionally, like the very act of touching it caused a sharp sting in my heart. The pain was unbearable, almost as if it were tied to my very soul. But I couldn't take it off, no matter how badly I wanted to. It was like it had become a part of me, a part of him, a reminder of everything I had lost. My eyes scanned the room once more, my heart aching as I tried to find him. No Raphael. The absence of his presence hit me harder than I had anticipated. For days, I waited. I waited for a call, for a text, anything. I waited for Raphael to show up at my door, for him to tell me it had all been a misunderstanding, that he cared about me. But nothing came. I called him over and over. My fingers trembled as I dialed his number, desperate, but the calls went unanswered. I left him a message, my voice hoarse with frustration. "Raphael, please, I need you. Why won't you answer me?" But it was like my words had fallen into a void. Nothing came back, no response, no explanation. Days went by, and each day felt like a slow death. I moved through my routine like a zombie, numb to everything around me. I was hurting, physically, mentally, emotionally, and I couldn't breathe without him. I needed him. And I couldn't have him. Finally, in a moment of sheer desperation, I made a decision. I couldn't wait anymore. I had to go to him. I had to know why he was doing this, why he was shutting me out. I didn't care about my pride anymore. I didn't care about anything except seeing him, speaking to him, feeling something, anything, like the way I used to. I gathered what little strength I had left and made my way to his cabin, every step an effort, my heart pounding in my chest as I wondered what I would find. The gas stove turned on, the sound of the flames flickering in the kitchen. I had arrived. His cabin was quiet when I entered, but I could hear the sound of movement from the back. My heart leapt in my chest as I followed the sound, each step feeling heavier than the last. When I saw him, standing there in front of the window, I almost didn't recognize him. There was a coldness in his eyes I had never seen before, an indifference that sliced through me like ice. Raphael turned to face me, his expression unreadable. He didn't look happy to see me. He didn't look relieved or even concerned. "I thought you might show up," he said flatly, his voice devoid of emotion. My breath caught in my throat, and for a moment I thought I might collapse. But I held on, pushing through the pain to stand tall before him. "Why didn't you answer me?" I asked, my voice trembling, barely able to contain the tears that threatened to spill. "Why are you doing this?" Raphael's gaze hardened, and I felt something inside of me break. He took a deep breath, and then his words hit me like a hammer to the chest. "I don't have time for this, Dianna. My pack needs a Luna who is strong, someone like Sierra. She's who I need, not you. The words cut through me, and I felt the world tilt on its axis. My legs buckled, but I held on to the table beside me for support. Sierra, he wanted Sierra. The pendant around my neck burned against my skin, searing like a hot iron. I gasped, my hand clutching it as though it could somehow stop the agony that swelled within me. But it only hurt more, the heat intensifying as if it were alive, as if it were tied to the very core of my pain. I didn't know how I got back to my house. I don't even remember walking home. My heart was shattered. My body ached in ways I didn't know were possible, and all I could hear in my head were Raphael's words, his cruel, indifferent words. She's who I need, not you. I tried to breathe, but it felt like I was suffocating. I stumbled into my room, falling onto my bed, clutching the pendant to my chest, as if it could give me the comfort I so desperately needed. But it didn't. Nothing could. The tears flowed freely now, my heart breaking into 1,000 jagged pieces as I realized the truth. Raphael didn't love me. He never had. And now, I was left with nothing but the remnants of a love that was never real. The pendant burned against my skin, reminding me of everything I had lost. And yet, I couldn't take it off. It was the only thing left of him.
Chapter 25, Unraveling Resolve. I sat in the dead quiet of my cabin, still and cold, but the fire in me wouldn't die. I didn't rekindle the flames in the hearth. I didn't move. I just sat there. Her voice wouldn't stop playing in my head. Why didn't you answer me? And the way her voice cracked, it ripped through me like claws to the soul. I couldn't breathe when she said that. Hell, I couldn't even look her in the eyes for long, not without shattering myself 1,000 times over. I had broken her, not with claws, not with blood, but with words that turned to ice the second they left my lips. I had seen her eyes, the same ones that once looked at me like I was her whole world, go hollow. I let her walk away, stumbling like the earth beneath her had given out. My wolf has been howling ever since, pacing, agonized, furious. Every scent she left behind on the air, the doorframe, even my clothes, set him off. I could feel him gnashing at the edges of my mind, begging me to run after her, to find her, to bring her back, to fall to my knees and beg. But I didn't. I stayed frozen. Because I thought I was protecting her. Because I thought if she hated me, she'd survive what's coming. But now I don't know if I was protecting her or just being a coward. The door creaked open. I didn't even look up. Sierra's scent hit me first, crisp, sweet, like something trying too hard to be appealing. It wasn't what I needed, not now, not ever. We need to finalize the strategy, she said, all clipped and businesslike, walking in like she belonged here. I gave a stiff nod and turned toward the map I'd sprawled out over the war table. Red pins, black marks, Iron Fang territory, our weakening borders. I tried to focus on the mission, on the chaos building just beyond our lands, but Sierra's presence was too loud, too close. She stepped beside me, her shoulder brushing mine. I felt it. I didn't want to. She pointed at a flank position, her tone measured, but I could feel her eyes on me, not the map. Then her hand brushed mine. The contact sent a jolt through me, not one of desire, but alarm. Her fingers lingered. I stiffened. Still, she didn't stop. She leaned in like she couldn't read the weight in the air. Her hand moved up across my chest, right over my heart. Raphael, she said, soft and coaxing, you don't have to carry this alone. I can help you. I've always been willing. That's when it snapped. I grabbed her wrist tight, not gently. I shoved her hand away like it burned me. My voice came out low and rough. Don't. She blinked surprised. You were just what? I snarled, my grip tightening before I forced myself to let go. Her face paled, but I wasn't done. You think I don't see what you're doing? I said, every word sharp as broken glass. I may have sent her away, Sierra, but don't mistake that for an invitation. She still owns every goddamn piece of me. Don't ever lay a hand on me again like that. Silence fell like a hammer. She stepped back, something flickering behind her eyes, hurt maybe, rage, I didn't care. I turned my back to her and braced myself against the table, my arms shaking. I hated this, all of it. I hated her for trying. I hated myself more for letting Dianna go. And most of all, I hated the war that demanded I become this thing, cold, calculated, alone. But the truth. For the first time in my life, even surrounded by maps and plans, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was lost. And Dianna, she was the only one who ever made me feel like I was.
Chapter 26. Hollow Echoes. The tea had gone cold in my hands, but I didn't move. I sat on Maddie's couch, legs pulled up, blanket draped around my shoulders like armor. The silence between us wasn't tense, it was kind. She always gave me space like that. No pressure, no demands. But the quiet didn't stop the noise in my head. I didn't know how many days had passed since everything with Raphael shattered. Maybe 3, maybe 5. They all bled into each other now. I hadn't been home. Maddie had picked me up the night I stood outside his door and came back numb. I hadn't said much. She hadn't asked. She came over now, placing a small plate on the coffee table. Toast, a few strawberries. "You need to eat," she said softly, tucking her legs beneath her as she sat beside me. I nodded, but I didn't move. "You don't even have to finish it, just a few bites." I stared out the window. The world looked too normal for how broken I felt. The sun had no business shining. "I'm trying," I said after a moment. My voice didn't sound like mine. "I know," she replied. "I just wish I could do more." I looked at her then, really looked. Her eyes were tired too. Worry does that. And I hated that she was hurting because I was like this. "I'm sorry," I whispered. She frowned. "Don't do that. Don't apologize for being in pain." "I just feel like I'm taking up space I don't deserve." "Dianna," she reached for my hand. "You don't have to earn space in my life. You're my best friend. You don't have to be okay to be loved." That cracked something in me. My throat tightened, and I had to bite the inside of my cheek just to stay grounded. "I keep thinking maybe he never felt the same," I said. "Maybe I imagined all of it." "You didn't," her voice was steady. "I saw the way you lit up when you talked about him. I saw the way you changed. That doesn't come from nothing." I laughed bitterly. Well, it ended like nothing. She didn't respond, just squeezed my hand. "I went to see him," I admitted, my voice barely a whisper. I stood there, hoping for anything, a sign, a word, a look. He wouldn't even meet my eyes. That memory felt like a blade. I don't understand how someone who once made me feel like I was home could make me feel like a mistake. Maddie didn't try to fix it. She didn't give me false hope or hollow reassurances. She just shifted closer and pulled me into her arms. And for the first time in days, I let myself lean into her. I let the tears come. "I'm so tired," I said. "I don't even know what part of me is still real without him." Maddie pulled back just enough to look at me. You were real long before him. That bright, stubborn, kind-hearted mess I've known for years. She's still in there." I shook my head. "It doesn't feel like it." "Then I'll keep reminding you until it does." I broke again at that, quietly, messily, and Maddie didn't flinch. She just held me tighter, grounding me in the one thing I still had left. Someone who stayed.
Chapter 27. Blood. The air hung thick, humid, and unmoving, but inside me a storm raged. I stood at the edge of my porch, arms crossed, trying to will the ache out of my bones. I hadn't slept. I couldn't, not after what I'd done to Dianna. Her silence screamed louder than any war cry, and I deserved every second of it. Then I heard her boots stomping through mud, voice cutting through the trees like a blade. "Raphael. Maddie." Luca's voice followed behind her, low and warning, but it was too late. She was already in front of me, fire in her eyes, face flushed with rage. "You get your ass down here and explain yourself." I didn't move. What could I say? She climbed the steps and slammed her hand against my chest. "She's not okay. She's a wreck because of you, and you don't even have the decency to check if she's breathing. What kind of man are you?" Each word hit like a whip. I didn't flinch. I deserved them. "She cries herself to sleep, you know that," she spat. "She still wears that pendant you gave her, and it burns her, Raphael. It burns her, and she won't take it off. That's how deep she loved you. And you—" She raised her fist. Luca lunged forward to stop her, but she landed a solid shove before he caught her arm. She bit him hard. He cursed, struggling to hold her. "She loved you, you bastard," she shouted, tears breaking through. "You broke her." The siren ripped through the air. My head snapped toward the forest. A warning howl echoed seconds later. "Shit. They were here. The Iron Fangs." Maddie, Luca, get to shelter now, I barked, already ripping off my shirt. Luca's body snapped into his wolf form, massive and silver. Maddie went pale. He scooped her up and vanished through the trees, her shrieks trailing behind him. And then the enemy hit. Wolves, dozens, came pouring through the trees like shadows with teeth. I shifted midair, bones snapping, fur bristling. I met the first one with fangs bared. I tore through him. Blood sprayed the leaves. Another lunged. I ducked, then drove claws into his throat. All I saw was red. I fought like a demon, because this wasn't just war anymore. It was punishment. For her, for them, for everything I'd failed to protect. From the corner of my eye, I saw Luca's wolf barrel through two enemies, dragging Maddie toward the safe house entrance. She was wide-eyed, silent now. I didn't stop. I couldn't. One wolf after another, their snarls turning to gurgles. My limbs ached, my side burned, but I didn't stop. And then silence. Blood soaked the dirt, my heart thundered. Two bodies near the edge of the clearing caught my eye. Megas. Gone. I staggered to them, dropped to my knees. I knew their names, I remembered their laughter. Now they were cold. Luca limped toward me, back in human form, blood running down his arm from where Maddie bit him, but it wasn't the wound that darkened his expression. He knelt beside me and held out a blood-streaked satchel. I looked inside. A map, our territory with troop placements marked. A tracker, ours. And a communication stone that was only issued to Inner Circle Command. All from my war room. All from Sierra's bag. She dropped this while retreating, Luca said. His voice was hoarse. I saw her slip out right before the attack began, took the East Ridge away from the fighting. Proof. Cold, clear betrayal. It hit me harder than any claw. She handed us to them, I said flatly. Luca nodded once. She did. I stared at the bloodied map in my hands. My chest heaved, not with grief, not even rage. This was something deeper, more lethal. Sierra had crossed a line. I stood slowly, letting the satchel fall to the dirt. This isn't over, I said. No one betrays their own and walks away breathing. She knew my secrets, my defenses. She had tried to steal my loyalty with touch, and when she failed, she sold us for power. Now she would learn what true retribution looked like. And I would not stop until the ground ran red with her lies. Chapter 28, Vengeance. The battle had only just begun, but the world around me felt like it had already ended. Two Omegas, young, loyal, now lifeless on the ground, their blood staining the dirt beneath us. Sierra had sold us out. She had handed us over to the Iron Fangs for her own selfish reasons, out of spite, out of anger. She knew what it meant. She knew the cost. The proof was right there in front of me, the map, the tracker, the communication stone, all of it from her bag. The moment Luca showed me the satchel she'd left behind, the rage that flooded my veins was like fire. There was no doubt now, she had betrayed us. And there would be no mercy for her. I didn't waste time, the hunt was on. I found her in the woods, hiding like a coward. She was crouched low, her breathing erratic, her body trembling, afraid. She had always been strong, so why was she scared now? Because she knew this moment had come. She knew I was going to make her pay. Her eyes locked with mine, and for a moment she didn't move. She wasn't ready to admit her crime, not yet, but I wasn't going to give her the chance. Sierra, I said, my voice a low growl, you're done. Her gaze shifted, almost as if she wanted to say something, apologize maybe, but I didn't give her the opportunity. I moved in faster than she could react. She tried to scramble back, but it was futile. My claws sank deep into her flesh before she could even raise a hand in defense. There was no hesitation, no second thoughts. She had betrayed us all. She had handed over the people who trusted her. She was a traitor, and there was no place for that in my world. Her eyes widened, surprise mixing with the briefest flicker of regret, but it was too late. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but the words never left her lips. I had already finished it. Her body went limp in my hands, the life drained from her eyes. The forest went silent. I stood over her, chest heaving, not feeling relief, not feeling victory, nothing but the cold realization of what I had just done. I had just killed someone who once stood by my side, someone who had been part of my pack. But I couldn't afford to think of that now. The fight wasn't over. I had to finish this to make sure the Iron Fangs didn't think they could walk away unscathed, that they could continue to threaten my pack without consequence. The next day, I set my challenge for Alpha Dane, a one-on-one battle. It was a last-ditch effort to end this war on my terms, to stop the Iron Fangs from taking more from us, but I knew what it would cost. My pack was already weakened from the ambush. They were hesitant. They didn't want me to go. They wanted to protect me. But I had to do this. This war had already cost too many lives. I had to end it now. The battle was set, neutral ground, no interference. I arrived at the designated place, the tension thick in the air. Alpha Dane was there, standing tall, an arrogant smirk on his face as he sized me up. This wasn't just another fight for him. It was a battle for dominance, a chance to crush me. But I wasn't here to win for pride. I was here to ensure my people's survival. I was here to make sure the bloodshed stopped. The fight began. Dane came at me fast, his strikes strong, his wolf form brutal. He fought with everything he had, but I was faster, stronger in ways that mattered more than brute force. My strikes were calculated, each one landing with deadly precision. We clashed, the sounds of our bodies colliding echoing through the clearing. Pain seared through me, but I didn't stop. Every strike I landed was for the Omegas we had lost. Every strike was for the pack I had failed to protect. It felt like hours, the fight stretching on, both of us pushing past our limits, refusing to give in. But in the end, I found the opening, the one mistake Dane made. With one final savage strike, I tore through his throat, watching as the light left his eyes. It was over. The Iron Fangs were done. I stood there over the fallen body of Alpha Dane, panting heavily. I had done it. I had avenged my pack. The bloodshed would end here. But even as I looked at the lifeless form of my enemy, there was no feeling of triumph, no sense of victory, only emptiness. The war was over for now, but it had come at too great a cost. My pack was safe, but my heart was still hollow. Dianna wasn't here to share this moment with me. I had lost her, and no amount of vengeance could fill that void. The battle was won, but the war in my heart was far from over. Chapter 29, Unspoken Goodbye. I wasn't planning on graduating. At least not in the way everyone else was. College, that was never my path. I had missed the exam, not because I didn't care, but because I didn't need it. Not anymore. I was already where I needed to be, at least in the eyes of my people. Alpha. I'd become the leader of my pack at 20, and the weight of that responsibility had pulled me in directions that had nothing to do with classrooms or tests. I was responsible for the lives of others now, and that was a full-time job in itself. College was a chapter I had long closed. But today something tugged at me. I found myself outside the auditorium, my hands shoved into the pockets of my jacket, just watching. I told myself it was curiosity. I told myself I was just passing by. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. She was there, Dianna. Her graduation, her moment. I had no right to be here, no right to be in her world anymore. But there I was, standing just outside, staring through the glass doors. I could see her in the crowd, her dark hair falling perfectly around her face, her smile as bright as I remembered it. She had worked for this, earned it, and here I was, no degree, no paper to prove my worth, but I didn't need one. I was already a leader. The world I had chosen was one that didn't require diplomas or certificates. Still, watching her, seeing her surrounded by friends and laughter made something stir in me that I couldn't quite shake. It hurt. She saw me. Her eyes met mine across the distance. A brief second, just a glance, but it was enough. I saw the recognition in her gaze, the surprise, and maybe sadness. I couldn't be sure. I didn't deserve to be sure. I wanted to go to her, to speak, to apologize for everything I'd left unsaid. But the moment passed, and I stayed where I was, watching from afar. She didn't need me anymore. She was moving forward just as she should. She had a future, a life waiting for her that didn't include me. I wasn't part of that future. So I turned and walked away, the weight of my decisions pressing harder than ever. I wasn't a part of her world anymore. And as I left the campus behind me, I couldn't shake the feeling that this goodbye was the one I'd been avoiding for too long.
Chapter 30, When the World Stopped. My name was called again, louder this time. But I couldn't move. My heart was thudding so hard I could barely hear anything else. The applause, the laughter, the names being read out, They all faded into silence. Because I could feel him. I didn't even have to look. I knew he was there, watching. His eyes on me like fire licking across my skin. It had been weeks since the last time I saw Raphael, since he shattered my heart and walked away without looking back. I told myself I was fine. I told myself I hated him. I told myself he made his choice. But now, with him near, every lie I had told myself started to crumble. I couldn't stop myself. I turned. And the world just froze. There he was, standing at the far end of the crowd like a ghost, like a memory that refused to fade. Taller, broader. His presence commanded attention, but no one else noticed him the way I did. He was devastating. His eyes met mine, and the world melted away. There was no stage, no people, no certificates, no applause. Just him, and me, and everything unspoken between us. He didn't smile, not really. His lips curved faintly, not with joy but with something heavier, like grief, like goodbye. And then he turned. And I broke. I dropped everything, sense, pride, logic, and I ran. Down the aisle, through the crowd, ignoring Maddie shouting behind me. I didn't care if anyone was watching. I needed to see him. One last time. I saw his silhouette just as he passed the gates. Raphael, I called out before I even knew I was going to. He stopped. Slowly, he turned, and my breath caught in my throat. His eyes locked onto mine, like he was trying to memorize me all over again. You should go back, he said, voice low, rough, like he hadn't used it in weeks. I walked toward him, trembling. Why are you here? His jaw clenched. I wanted to see you, one last time. My chest ached. So that's it. You break me and show up just to watch me from the shadows. He didn't flinch. I never wanted to hurt you. You did hurt me, I screamed, tears spilling freely now. You didn't just break my heart, Raphael. You shattered it and walked away like I meant nothing to you. I was trying to protect you, he shouted, the dam breaking. You think it was easy for me. You think I wanted to leave. Then why did you? I cried. Why did you walk away when I needed you? He looked at me like I was both his salvation and his curse. Because I'm dangerous, Dianna. Because my world isn't safe. People around me get hurt. I thought I was doing the right thing, but... He stepped closer, pain written all over his face. I was wrong, he whispered. I was so damn wrong. I shook my head, sobbing. Why now? He stared at me like he was looking into his own soul. Because I'm selfish, he said, voice cracking. Because I can't stay away from you like I should. I've tried. God, I've tried. But every moment without you was like drowning. I couldn't breathe. I still dream of you, he said. I still hear your laugh. I see your eyes every time I close mine. And I hate myself for hurting you. But I'd rather be hated by you than live a life without ever seeing you again. The tears wouldn't stop now. My whole body trembled. I can't stay away from you, he said again, softer this time, stepping so close I could feel the heat off his body. I don't want to. Then don't, I whispered through the tears. Please don't stay away. And then he looked at me like the truth was about to spill out of him, like the words had been locked in a cage inside his chest for far too long. His voice broke when he said it. I love you, Dianna. The world cracked open. I tried not to. God knows I tried, but I love you, I always have, and I don't know how to stop. My breath hitched so hard I nearly collapsed. My knees buckled. Because no one had ever said it to me like that. Like a confession and a curse. Like it hurt to admit it. Like it would kill him not to. I stepped closer, barely able to speak. Say it again. He took my face in his hands, eyes full of fury and ache and need. I love you, he whispered, like it was both salvation and surrender. And I shattered. I love you too, I choked out, the words tasting like truth and lightning. So much it hurts. And that was all it took. He crashed into me. His lips were on mine, desperate and wild, like he was pouring all the agony of the weeks apart into that one kiss. My back slammed into the wall as he held me like he was afraid I'd disappear. There was nothing soft about it. It was raw, fiery. My fingers tangled in his hair as he gripped my waist, pulling me closer until there was no space between us. His lips trailed down my jaw to my neck and back again, whispering my name like a prayer. I kissed him like I was dying, like he was air, like I had been starved of him for far too long. He growled against my mouth, and I gasped, his hands anchoring me as mine roamed up his chest, memorizing every inch like it might be the last time. But it was. It couldn't be. Because this was home. He pulled back just slightly, his breath ragged. "Tell me you're real," he whispered, forehead pressed against mine. "I'm real," I breathed, brushing away his tears with shaking fingers. "And I'm yours." Forever, I didn't say, but he knew. Because even after everything, we had found our way back. And this time, we weren't letting go. Epilogue, always knew it was you. If you told me at 16 that by 18 I'd be planning my wedding, I would have laughed in your face, then cried into my geometry homework. But here I am. White fairy lights tangled through the trees, Maddie bossing around the florist like she's been planning this since birth, and Raphael looking at me like I'm the only thing anchoring him to this world. It still feels surreal. My parents were hesitant, of course. "Too young," they said. "Too fast." But after a few dinner talks, some honest tears, and my mom catching the way Raphael looks at me when he thinks no one's watching, they started to understand. They saw it too. This wasn't impulsive. This was inevitable. Maddie flops down beside me, snapping me out of my daze. "All right, Bridezilla, I've narrowed it down to ivory roses or blush peonies. Pick one before I lose my will to live." I laugh. "I trust you. Go with your gut." "My gut says you should elope and save me the stress." "You love it." She sighs. "I do, but I love complaining about it more." Luca walks past, shirtless and smug as ever. Maddie stiffens immediately. "Oh, look," she mutters. "A wild man-child appears." Luca doesn't miss a beat. Did someone summon the Queen of Chaos? "I will throw a bouquet at your face," she snaps. "Better aim than your love life," he shoots back. I snort. Maddie glares at me, but she's smiling too. The kind that says, I hate him, but maybe not completely. Raphael joins me, slipping an arm around my waist like he's done it 1,000 lifetimes. I lean into him without thinking. Maddie fake gags. Luca rolls his eyes. "They're going to be this gross forever, aren't they?" "Oh, definitely," Maddie deadpans. Later that night, after the backyard quiets, the moon high and silver above, I find him waiting, just like always. I still can't believe they agreed. I whisper as I slide into his arms. "They saw what I've always known," he says, brushing my hair back. "You're not just mine, you're it for me." We don't rush, we don't need to. Everything we do now, every look, every kiss feels like fire wrapped in gold. Safe but burning. That night, wrapped in soft sheets and softer skin, his forehead pressed against mine, he whispers, "You're home." And I know we'll never need anything more.